Chapter 380. Will you come back later? Xiang Kaiping looked at Su Qingsang. Although she had only lived in this place for less than 2 months, she already felt a little reluctant to leave. Wasn't it nice to be here? Only his daughter and son-in-law, no other outsiders. If he went to Rong City, He Jinyao's family must be very rich. By then, would Su Qingsang really be able to handle those interpersonal relationships and things? How could living with her mother-in-law be as comfortable as living with her husband and wife outside? Mom, of course I have to come back. Su Qingsang had some things to pack. He also handed over his work in the hospital. More importantly, if she were to work in a hospital in Rong City, she would need a recommendation letter from the hospital here. She could rely on He Jinyao, but she preferred to rely on herself. She believed she had the ability. After dinner, she chatted with Xiang Kaiping for a while. That included where they would stay after they arrived at Rong City. Su Qingsang had already thought of how to settle them down. She was also afraid that Xiang Kaiping would feel uncomfortable. He told her that he would definitely live with her in the future. Only then did Xiang Kaiping feel somewhat relieved. As long as she wasn't living with her mother-in-law, everything was fine. It wasn't that she looked down on her daughter. Indeed, in terms of status, she was much lower than He Jinyao. She was also afraid that her daughter would be at a disadvantage. Su Qingsang was touched by Xiang Caiping's concern for her. After comforting her for a long time, she finally felt more at ease. Besides, there was still He Jinyao. He Jinyao also promised that he would not let Su Qingsang suffer. With his assurance, Xiang Kaiping could only put her mind at ease. The three of them chatted and laughed for a while before Xiang Kaiping dispelled all her worries. As soon as he returned to his room, He Jinyao's expression changed. He looked at Su Qingsang, his eyes full of wisdom. What's wrong with you? Su Qingsang felt uncomfortable under his gaze. Why are you looking at me like that? He Jinyao narrowed his eyes and looked at Su Qingsang from head to toe. Go ahead. What? Su Qingsang blinked. She didn't believe that He Jinyao could guess it. Did the Su family cause you trouble? He Jinyao hit the nail on the head. Su Qingsang almost couldn't hold back her laughter. Nonsense, there's no such thing. No. He Jinyao raised his eyebrows. You weren't this enthusiastic when I asked you to go to Rong City before. I'm just happy that it's almost the new year and I've recognized a mother. Oh. He Jinyao thought of the Su family members. Your father? Li Qianxue? Or Su Peixian? You're thinking too much. I really didn't. Su Qingsang almost raised 3 fingers to swear. I really didn't. Su Peixian suffered in Japan, so I don't think she'll bother you again. Su Qinghui had been here last time. Besides, he wouldn't go to the extent of finding trouble with you. That is Li Qianxue. He Jinyao took a step forward. His deep gaze was sharp and direct. Li Qianxue looked for you? Su Qingsang felt a little helpless. It was really not a good thing to have a husband who was too smart. Why did she come to me? Even if she didn't come to find me, I would still go to Rong City. It really is her. He Jinyao had already gotten her answer. He looked Su Qingsang up and down. Did she do it? No. Su Qingsang quickly denied it. I really didn't. Why would a person like her hit me? She didn't hit you? He Jinyao didn't believe it. No, why would she look for you? You can't hide the fact that your mother is back. But I don't think your father would tell her. Even if she wanted to look for someone, she would look for your mother. Why did she look for you? Su Qingsang began to feel a headache. He Jinyao, you actually don't have to be so smart. He Jinyao narrowed his eyes. If you don't tell me, I'll ask our mother directly. Don't. I'm really scared of you. Su Qingsang avoided the topic and didn't say that Li Qianxue hit her. She only said that she did come to find trouble with her, but there were many people in the hospital, and she promised her that she would go to Rong City in the future. That's right. You see, I decided to go to Rong City. Didn't we agree before? I just went a little earlier. As Su Qingsang spoke, she held He Jinyao's hand. Don't be angry. She didn't do anything to me. As for taking my mother to Rong City, even if she didn't say it, I would think so. After all, if my mother stayed in Lin City, she would run into my father's family. He Jinyao wasn't angry. He stared at the guilty look on her face. You haven't told me why Li Qianxue came to look for you. Su Qingsang's eyes looked around, but she didn't look at He Jinyao. She didn't need to tell He Jinyao about the conflict with Su Peixian in Japan. Who knows? Maybe she knows that my mother is back. Wife. He Jinyao squeezed her palm a little hard. Do you know that you are really a bad liar? Really? Su Qingsang blinked. So I didn't lie. He Jinyao looked at her and let go. Okay, I suddenly think it's better for me to ask our mother. I'll also tell your mother about Li Qianxue coming to look for you. I don't think your mother knows, does she? Su Qingsang was defeated by him. She quickly grabbed his hand and said, actually, it's really not a big deal. She hesitantly mentioned the conflict in Japan. Actually, I wasn't injured and I didn't suffer any losses. It's just that my mother was too impatient. She slapped Su Peijian in the face. Huo Jinyao's face was a little gloomy. He stared at Su Qingsang's eyes for a long time without saying a word. Su Qingsang begged for mercy. Don't be like this. It's really nothing. She even got slapped in the face. Huo Jinyao still didn't speak. Su Qingsang felt more and more helpless. Look at her. Who dares to hit her since she was a child? My mother has already stood up for me. I didn't suffer any losses from Auntie. So let's just let it go, okay? Huo Jinyao looked at her face and understood what she meant. It was better to avoid trouble. However, she was willing to let it go, but he was not. Holding her hand, Huo Jinyao's voice was very soft. Wife, I hope you understand one thing. You're my wife. She's my wife. If others bully you, it's the same as bullying me. Next time you encounter something like this, don't care who they are. Just hit them back. Huo Jinyao, how could she be so violent? Even if you're at a disadvantage. If you can't beat them, it's okay. Come back and tell me. Su Qingsang looked at his serious eyes and the domineering tone in his words. She wanted to laugh but also wanted to cry. Are you trying to instigate me to fight outside? No. Huo Jinyao put his arm around her waist. I want to tell you. When you encounter those who don't have eyes, don't be polite and don't be afraid. Don't let others bully you. Chapter 381. I know. Su Qingsang blushed a little and leaned against Huo Jinyao's chest. Don't worry. I'm not the kind of person who will let myself suffer. Otherwise, she wouldn't have fought back when Li Qianxue came to her door. Really? Huo Jinyao didn't believe it. With her personality, she must have suffered a lot in the Su family in the past. Let bygones be bygones. Huo Jinyao would never let her suffer again in the future. Su Qingsang's face was pressed against his chest, and she smelled his clean, masculine scent. Suddenly, she burst into laughter. What are you laughing at? Nothing. Su Qingsang thought of Li Qianxue's angry look yesterday. Actually, I fought back yesterday. She just didn't fight back clearly. Meeting Huo Jinyao's probing gaze, she told him about the gift she casually gave yesterday. She smiled a little proudly like a little fox who had done something bad. She probably hasn't received such a casual gift in her life. Huo Jinyao imagined Li Qianxue's expression at that time and looked at Su Qingsang, who was laughing openly. He reached out and pinched her cheek. You also think it's funny, right? Su Qingsang stuck out her tongue. Can you not be angry now? He wasn't angry. He was just not happy that she was hiding something from him. Huo Jinyao's voice was very soft as he held her up. Still angry, very angry. If you want to, I won't be angry. Why don't you do something that won't make me angry? The pride on Su Qingsang's face suddenly disappeared. There's no need. What do you think? Huo Jinyao didn't intend to let her go just like that. The kitten has worn it. The bunny hasn't worn it yet. Try it today. Don't. Su Qingsang suddenly chickened out. My waist is still weak. Huo Jinyao glared at her and looked a little disgusted. You're so useless. It's not that I'm useless. The moment Su Qingsang's body hit the bed, her tone quickened. Is that you're too useful? Huo Jinyao supported his body with one hand and looked at Su Qingsang's pleading face. He thought of this morning. Xiang Kaiping asked him to control himself and said that Su Qingsang's body was weak and couldn't take it. Are you really tired? I'm really tired. Su Qingsang bit her lip and put on a look of negotiation. How about tomorrow? Huo Jinyao looked at her and didn't continue. Turning over, he lay down beside her. Su Qingsang was relieved. She couldn't help but look at him again and found that he was also looking at her. His eyes were deep and spirited, like the stars in the night sky. Su Qingsang had to admit that no matter how many times she saw him, she would always be captivated by his handsomeness. She propped her hand up, leaned over and kissed his eyes. Huo Jinyao lowered his voice. Don't seduce me. Otherwise, I won't be able to keep my promise. Su Qingsang stopped talking, made a zipping gesture, and quickly slipped down from the other side of the bed. I'm going to shower. Looking at the closed door of the bathroom, Huo Jinyao still had a fire burning in his body, but it had subsided a lot. He thought about what Su Qingsang had said. It was good to go to Rong City. Since there was still more than half a month's time, he could take advantage of this opportunity to arrange things here. He believed that if they were going back to Rong City, Grandpa would be very happy, right? Su Qingsang decided to go to Song City for the exchange program. There were also a lot of things to pack. The hospital let them go home one day in advance to pack their things. The plane to Song City was at 10 o'clock the next morning. They could go to the airport by themselves or go to the hospital. The hospital car would take them there. Su Qingsang was gone for half a month. Hua Jinyao, who had considerately let her rest for the night yesterday, didn't intend to endure it anymore today. He only let Su Qingsang go after torturing her for a long time. The next day, Su Qingsang couldn't open her eyes. It was Hua Jinyao who carried her. He knew that he had gone a little overboard yesterday. He carried her into the bathroom and helped her to wash up. Xiang Kaiping stood in the living room and watched Su Qingsang walk out with her suitcase in her hand. She wanted to say something but stopped. If Su Qingsang wasn't going for the exchange program, she would have followed her. Mom, I'm leaving. Did you bring enough clothes? Did you bring everything? How's the weather over there? Did you put an umbrella in your bag? What if it snows? Mom. Su Qingsang put her hand on her forehead. I brought enough. Song City is hotter than Lin City. I brought my umbrella. It won't snow over there. Don't worry. That's good, that's good. Xiang Kaiping was still worried. Take good care of yourself when you get there. Don't be too busy. No matter how hard I work, my health is more important. For so many years, Su Qingsang had always been alone, whether she was studying or going out. After marrying Hua Jinyao, he had become a person who did more than he said. This was the first time someone had nagged her about what she should pay attention to when she went out. She couldn't help but give Xiang Kaiping a hug. I'm not a kid anymore. Don't worry. I will take good care of myself. That's good. That's good. Xiang Kaiping repeated this sentence over and over again. He felt conflicted and gratified at the same time. Su Qingsang knew that if she wasn't at home, Xiang Kaiping's imagination would run wild. It was better to find something for her to do. Mom, didn't you say you knew how to make bacon and sausages? I think the weather in Lin City is quite good these days. If you have nothing to do, why don't you make something delicious? When I come back. Okay. Xiang Kaiping seemed to be suddenly energized. I know how to make bacon and sausages. I even know how to make beef jerky. If you like it, I'll make more. That's great. Su Qingsang blinked at Hua Jinyao as she spoke. Jinyao likes it very much too. Thank you. It's not hard at all. Xiang Kaiping wanted to do something for her daughter. How could she feel that it was hard? After sending Su Qingsang off, she began to think about what ingredients she wanted to buy. Speaking of which, she hadn't done it for many years. She was a little worried that she couldn't do it. Hua Jinyao helped Su Qingsang carry her luggage into the car and closed the door for her. Before starting the car, he glanced at her. You asked so much in one go. Aren't you afraid that your mother will tire herself out? Don't worry. She can't stay idle. I've already calculated everything. When I come back, she'll be almost done. Hua Jinyao smiled and reached out to rub the top of her head. Right? What do you mean by my mother? Isn't my mother your mother? Besides, my mother is tired. Don't you know how to remind her when you're at home? Su Qingsang blinked at him with obvious dissatisfaction in her eyes. Chapter 382. That's more like it. Su Qingsang smiled. When she smiled, the corners of her eyes were tinged with joy. Her facial features, which could only be considered beautiful, were particularly dazzling at this time. Hua Jinyao leaned over and kissed her on the cheek. Remember to miss me. Su Qingsang blinked and said, We'll see. I miss you whenever I have time. If I don't have time, I won't think about it. Hua Jinyao stepped on the accelerator, glanced at her and said calmly, Don't worry. I have a way to make you miss me every day. Su Qingsang snorted with a look of disbelief. However, he couldn't hide the smile on his face. The winter sun outside the car window was just right. She stretched out her hand and watched as the light shone on her hand, dyeing it with a layer of gold. This kind of life was really good and blissful. She had a man she liked as her husband and a mother who loved her dearly. She really wanted to be happy like this forever. She thought, I should be happy forever, right? Su Qingsang didn't know until she got on the plane. Other than her, Zhuo Hongchen was also among the doctors participating in the exchange. When she got on the plane and saw Zhuo Hongchen, her first reaction was to thank Hua Jinyao for not knowing. Her second reaction was, would Hua Jinyao be angry if he found out? It couldn't be, right? Even if he wanted to be angry. She's on the plane. That was it. Junior sister, you've come? When Zhuo Hongchen saw Su Qingsang, he stood up and extended his hand to her. Come, I'll help you put your luggage on it. Thank you. Senior brother Zhua. You're welcome. Zhua Hongchen was a man, so he easily picked up Su Qingsang's luggage and put it on the floor. Did you not rest well? The moment Su Qingsang sat down, she realized that not only was Zhua Hongchen there, but the two of them were sitting together. Was this really not arranged by Zhua Hongchen? As if sensing her confusion, Zhua Hongchen took the initiative to explain. When I found out about the exchange program, the first thing I did was to inform the administration and recommend you. Maybe it's because of this that our positions are together. It's okay. Su Qingsang waved her hand. It's okay to sit together. I happen to have a question to ask you. You're being too polite by saying that you're asking for advice. If you have any questions, just ask. Thank you, senior brother. Su Qingsang sat down. The rest of the journey became a medical exchange with Zhua Hongchen. As for the fact that Zhua Hongchen was going to the exchange program with her, there was no need to tell Hu Jinyao. Thinking of a certain someone's jealousy, the corners of Su Qingsang's mouth turned up, and she smiled happily. Zhua Hongchen had just returned from the bathroom and saw the smile on Su Qingsang's face. It was a smile that only appeared when he thought of his lover or lover. His expression darkened as he sighed in his heart. Sure enough, he was late. And Su Qingsang should be living a happy life, right? Xiang Kaiping had been busy ever since her daughter left. The sweater is almost finished. There were still 2 more sleeves to go. She wanted to finish it before her daughter came back. My daughter wants to eat sausages, bacon, and beef jerky. That was not difficult. The weather in Lin City was good these days. She had already decided the sausage first. Hu Jinyao noticed that Xiang Kaiping seemed to be more energetic every day since she had something to do. The little impact caused by Su Qinghui's appearance seemed to have disappeared. He could not help but feel that no one knew their mother better than their daughter. Su Qingsang and Xiang Kaiping had been mother and daughter for less than 2 months, but the mother-daughter relationship was already very deep. With the heart to busy herself for her daughter, he did not have to worry about Xiang Kaiping being bored. When he told Su Qingsang about this, she was half guilty and half touched. She really just said it casually, but Xiang Caiping's positive attitude made her a little speechless. She secretly decided that when she returned to Lin City, she would treat Xiang Kaiping better. She had to treat her better. Xiang Kaiping treated Su Qingsang well, not because she wanted her to return the favor. She wanted to make up for the motherly love that had been missing for so many years. For the next week or so, Xiang Kaiping cured sausages, bacon, and beef jerky, which were the special New Year products of Lin City. She also helped Su Qingsang knit the remaining 2 sleeves of the sweater. The white sweater looked very clean and refreshing. Xiang Kaiping also knitted a few mulberry leaves on the front of the sweater, and the crisscrossed lines looked very delicate. Xiang Kaiping finished knitting, but felt that something was missing. The sweater was not high-collared, and she was afraid that it would be cold when she went to Rong City. After thinking about it, Xiang Kaiping decided to buy some wool tomorrow and knit a scarf for Su Qingsang. Not only could she knit it for Su Qingsang, she could also give one to Hu Jinyao. During this period of time, Hu Jinyao had also been taking good care of her. Xiang Kaiping was not an ungrateful person. Hu Jinyao was very good to Su Qingsang, and he was also very good to her. She now not only treated Su Qingsang as her daughter, but also Hu Jinyao as her son-in-law. Knitting a scarf was easier, so she did it immediately. Xiang Kaiping went out early the next day. She went to buy wool. Lin City had changed a lot in more than 20 years. If Su Qingsang had not taken her to many places before, Xiang Kaiping might not have been able to recognize it. Xiang Kaiping planned to go home after buying the wool. When she passed by a very famous shopping mall in Lin City, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. She saw a rather luxurious jade shop next to the mall, and there was an exhibition in the window of the shop. It was a jade Buddha. Men wore guanyin and women wore Buddha. He recalled that his daughter was always in contact with patients and pregnant women in the hospital every day. He also had to run here and there to communicate with them. She wanted to buy this jade Buddha as a gift for her daughter. He entered the room. The shop was very big, and all the jade ornaments were arranged into several counters according to their types. There were jade bracelets, jade pendants, and jade ornaments. Xiang Kaiping glanced at it and walked directly to the counter where the jade pendant was sold. She asked the shop assistant to show her the jade Buddha. The shop assistant glanced at the clothes Xiang Kaiping was wearing and hesitated for a few seconds. "Auntie, this piece of jade is the treasure of our shop. It won't be cheap." Xiang Kaiping looked at the shop assistant from head to toe. However, he didn't get angry. "Miss, I'm old enough to be your mother. Do you think I'm here to tease you?" "Auntie, look at what you're saying. That's not what I meant. The shop assistant was a little embarrassed by Xiang Caiping's words. She turned around reluctantly to take the jade Buddha statue. The jade Buddha statue was not very big. It was just a little bigger than a pigeon's egg. It was a two-faced Buddha. The Maitreya Bodhisattva's big belly could accommodate. This jade Buddha statue was indeed very good, both in terms of the carving skills and the quality of the jade. When she was looking at it, the shop assistant was very worried and put her hand on the counter. Later, she felt that she was being too obvious, so she cleared her throat. "Andy, be careful when you carry it." Chapter 383. The shop assistant was surprised to see that Xiang Caiping was serious. "Andy, this piece of jade is an old pit jade. It's the king of jade in Myanmar. Back then this jade, little girl, just tell me how much it is." "Auntie, the price of this jade is 550,000 yuan. Our shop is now offering a 20% discount on jade wares. After the discount, it still costs 440,000 yuan. Xiang Caiping frowned. "That's not a good price. 440,000. It was too unpleasant to hear. Ask your boss if he can sell it for 390,000. Forever and ever." To tell the truth, no matter how good the quality of this jade artifact was, there was still a certain amount of water in it. From her point of view, this jade Buddha should be around 300,000. "Andy, look at what you're saying. We're such a big shop and we don't specialize in your business. This was all at a discount. I can't go any lower after the discount." Xiang Caiping looked conflicted. She really liked this piece of jade. He also felt that it was suitable for Qingsang. But 44 wasn't a good number, especially in the dialect of Lin City. For sounds the same as death. This made her even more displeased. The shop assistant sneered inwardly at Caiping's reaction. What did he mean by 440,000 not sounding good? Wasn't it because he didn't have money? "Little girl, how about this? You ask your boss. Can you sell it?" Xiang Caiping was not short of tens of thousands of dollars. However, she hoped that it would be a good omen for her daughter. Today, if this jade Buddha statue could be bought for 390,000 yuan, she would buy it. "Andy, that's really impossible." The shop assistant didn't even want to ask. Now she finally realized that this woman had no money at all. If she really asked, the boss would scold her. "Little girl, you don't look like a businessman. You're not your boss. How do you know you can't buy it?" "Although I'm not the boss, I'm not the boss. But we have rules here." She would be a fool if she really went to ask. Xiang Caiping's expression was a little ugly. She naturally knew that in places like this, people were picky and dismissive. But she didn't expect to encounter such a thing one day. "Little girl, I'm not leaving yet. Are you going to ask your boss?" "There's really no way to ask about this. If you don't like it, you can pay the original price of 560,000. I don't mind." "How can a little girl like you talk like that?" Xiang Caiping was furious. "I've said it before. You're not your boss. You don't have the right to decide, do you?" "I don't, but I think I have the right to decide whether to ask the boss or not, right?" The shop assistant's face was cold and he refused to go. The two were in a stalemate. Just then, Su Peijian walked in with a few noble ladies. Li Qianxue had a good friend whose birthday was next week. Li Qianxue had been very busy with work recently, so she asked Su Peijian to pick out a gift for her friend. When Su Peijian parked the car in front, she bumped into Luo Meishan's mother and Song Yoha's mother, who were also out shopping. Madame Luo and Madame Song had a good relationship with Li Qianxue. They naturally knew the people that Li Qianxue knew. It was Madame Luo and Madame Song's birthday the following week. Madame Luo and Madame Song also wanted to pick out a gift for Madame Luo. The three of them bumped into each other here. Su Peijian greeted the two aunties and suggested that they come to Bo Guzhai to take a look. Su Peijian saw Xiang Caiping as soon as she entered the room. Seeing her, the old and new hatred from the last slap in the face came flooding back. Su Peijian almost couldn't keep the calm smile on her face. "Peijian, what's wrong?" Madame Luo looked at Su Peijian and followed her gaze. "That's nothing, just a mistress." She said the last sentence so softly that the other two didn't hear it clearly. Su Peijian was a regular customer of Bo Guzhai. Not only her, but Madame Luo and Madame Song also came often. A shop assistant who already knew them quickly came up to them when she saw the three of them. "Miss Su, Madame Luo, Madame Song." Their attitude towards Xiang Caiping was completely different. The shop assistant smiled like a flower when she saw them. "May I know what you are here to see today?" Su Peijian wasn't in a hurry to choose something. Instead, she looked in Xiang Caiping's direction. "What's going on over there?" "That?" The shop assistant had heard it just now. Hearing Su Peijian's question, she told her what happened in a low voice. She obviously has no money, but she likes to pretend to have money. She's already paid more than 300,000 yuan, and she's reluctant to leave tens of thousands behind. She even wants us to call her boss. Don't you think that's infuriating? The shop assistant spoke softly. After all, even if Xiang Kaiping couldn't afford it, they couldn't openly offend a customer. Su Peijian snorted when she heard that, a hint of mockery appearing on her face. Madame Song and Madame Luo weren't interested in this matter and were about to choose a gift. Su Peijian turned to look at the two madams. Auntie Song, Auntie Luo. I know this customer who can't afford it. Since she can't afford the tens of thousands, why don't I help her out? When she said this, there was a flash of malice in her eyes. Madame Luo and Madame Song didn't see it, but since Su Peijian said she knew the customer, they let her be. Peijian, why don't you go first? We'll wait for you here. Auntie, you two can accompany me. Su Peijian hooked her arm around Madame Luo's. I'm just a little girl. I'm afraid that the auntie will be embarrassed and reject my good intentions. This? Madame Luo and Madame Song looked at each other and didn't object. Not to mention that the Su family was the most famous family in Lin City just based on their relationship with Li Qianxue, they had no reason not to help her. Just like that, the two of them followed Su Peijian to Xiang Caiping's side. Xiang Kaiping didn't have to buy this piece of jade. However, the shop assistant's attitude annoyed her. She had to see the owner of the jade today. Miss, when you're doing business, everyone is a customer. Since you're not the owner, how can you make decisions for your boss? This piece of jade is of good quality. But 300,000 is good enough. I'm offering 390,000 just to get a good start. If you really want to do business, go and ask your boss now. Can you sell it? Auntie, I've already said we can't sell it. Auntie, what? Are you buying jade? Su Peijian had seen enough. She took a few steps forward and stood next to Xiang Kaiping. She obviously didn't like Xiang Kaiping, but she still called her affectionately. It was as if they knew each other very well. What's going on? When Xiang Kaiping saw Su Peijian, she was a little unhappy. She took a step back and her attitude was defensive and distant. Miss Su, this has nothing to do with you. Please step aside. Chapter 384. While speaking, Su Peijian glanced at the shop assistant. Didn't you hear? Ask your boss to come here. Miss Su? The shop assistant treated Su Peijian with a completely different attitude. She bowed and said awkwardly, I'll go get him now. She didn't have to give face to Xiang Kaiping, who was obviously poor. But she had to give face to Su Peijian. Yes, in business harmony makes money. Even if we can't afford it, there will be unreasonable people. We have to be nice. Don't you think so? Su Peijian seemed to be talking to the shop assistant, but she was actually looking at Xiang Kaiping. Her meaning was obvious. Don't buy it if you can't afford it. Don't look at it if you don't like it. Xiang Kaiping frowned. She really didn't like Su Peijian. Not only did she dislike her, but she also hated the girl when she thought of how Su Peijian had bullied Su Qingsang all these years. Miss Su, this has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with me, but Su Qingsang and I are sisters. I should care about her mother, don't you think? Care. Was she here to watch the show? Xiang Kaiping didn't believe that Su Peijian would be so kind. Auntie, actually, if you really can't afford it, it's okay. I'll buy it for you. After all, I don't care about a few 100,000 yuan. Su Peijian said it casually, as if a few 100,000 yuan was just a few dozen yuan. Xiang Kaiping didn't like Su Peijian's attitude. In fact, she didn't understand. How could a gentleman like Su Qinghui have a daughter like that? No need. I can afford it. Really? Su Peijian didn't believe it. In her opinion, even if Hu Jinyao was rich, he wouldn't spend it on Xiang Kaiping. Xiang Kaiping, on the other hand, came from an ordinary family. It was impossible for her to be rich. How could she afford a jade pendant that was worth a few 100,000 yuan? Was that a joke? Auntie, are you sure? It's better not to be so prideful. Su Peijian turned to look at the jade Buddha. She had good taste. She looked up at the shop assistant and asked, How much did you say it was? Miss Su, the original price of this jade is 550,000. For the new year, we are offering a 20% discount on all jade wares. After the 20% discount, it will be 440,000 yuan. 440,000. Su Peijian nodded and glanced at the jade Buddha statue. It's not expensive. Auntie, I'll see you off. There's no need. I don't want it. Xiang Kaiping had been in the mood to pick out a gift for her daughter. There was nothing left now. She turned to leave, but Su Peijian stepped forward and blocked her way. "Auntie, don't be in such a hurry to leave. I already said that I bought it for you. Why are you leaving? Get out of my way." Xiang Kaiping looked at Su Peijian. Her expression had already darkened. "Take a look." As Su Peijian spoke, she glanced at Madame Luo and Madame Song. "I'm doing this out of kindness. Look, this gift can't even be given away. Don't you think it's strange?" If Madame Luo and Madame Song still couldn't tell that Su Peijian and Xiang Kaiping weren't on good terms, they would have lived for so many years in vain. Madame Luo rolled her eyes and stepped forward to stand next to Xiang Kaiping. "Madame Peijian is a good girl. Since she said that she would give it to you, you should just accept it." "Yes." Madame Song also stepped forward and stood on the other side of Xiang Kaiping. "I think it's rare for you to see a piece of jade like this in your life." That was really unpleasant to hear. Xiang Kaiping was being held by two people, one on the left and one on the right. Her expression was already quite unpleasant. "Su Peijian, what do you mean by this? Auntie, look, why are you so nervous? I've told you everything. What if you can't afford this jade pendant? I'll buy it for you. I'm doing my best for Qing Sang." Su Peijian suddenly looked at Xiang Kaiping. "Alright. Why didn't Qing Sang go shopping with you? Could it be that she didn't want to? Then I'll have to talk to her later. Don't go looking for her." From Xiang Caiping's point of view, her daughter was the best. "Stay away from her." Su Peijian's expression was a little ugly. She stood there and glared at Xiang Kaiping. She felt that this woman was really annoying. "And look, that's not right. I'm Qing Sang's sister. How can I stay away from her?" Madame Luo and Madame Song heard this and understood everything. The two of them looked at each other and saw a hint of understanding in each other's eyes. Back then, Li Qinxua disregarded her status and married a poor boy. That was a well-known joke in the upper class. What was even more ridiculous was that the poor boy had a childhood sweetheart. That childhood sweetheart even gave birth to an illegitimate daughter for the poor boy. This matter had almost spread throughout the upper class of Lin City. Now, looking at Su Peijian's attitude, this woman was Su Qinghui's mistress back then? Madame Luo and Madame Song looked at each other and understood the meaning in each other's eyes. It was normal for the mistress to be at odds with the legal wife. They just didn't know what this mistress had done to annoy the eldest daughter of the Su family. Madame Luo and Madame Song were both smart people. Even if they had never been in the business world, they knew that their husbands usually interacted with people, and they were quite familiar with the situation in Lin City. Since Su Peijian wanted to vent her anger, they naturally had to help her vent her anger. On the other end, Xiang Kaiping heard Su Peijian's words. Not only did her expression not relax, but it also became even uglier. "Qing Sang doesn't have a sister like you. Don't try to make connections." Of course, Su Peijian didn't want to acknowledge Su Qing Sang as a sister. However, not wanting to acknowledge her was different from Xiang Caiping's direct words. "Auntie, I don't think you have the right to decide for Qing Sang whether to acknowledge me or not. After all, my relationship with Qing Sang is not something you can deny just because you want to." Xiang Kaiping stood still and looked at Madame Luo and Madame Song. She frowned slightly. "Move aside. The boss isn't here yet. Don't rush." Su Peijian glanced at the shop assistant. "What? Is your boss so arrogant now? I'm here with Auntie Luo and Auntie Song. Can't he come and greet us?" "Miss Su, what are you talking about? The boss is coming." As they spoke, a lean middle-aged man walked out from behind. "I was wondering who it was. So it's Miss Su. And Madame Luo and Madame Song. Let me know if you need anything. I'll just bring it to your door." The boss had been in the jade business in Lin City for a long time and was quite familiar with Su Qinghui. He was more willing to give face to old Master Li. Chapter 385. Xiang Caiping's expression darkened. She no longer had any intention of buying the jade pendant. She tried to break free from Madame Luo and Madame Song. Madame Luo and Madame Song's hands were clinging tightly to her arm. "What are you doing?" Not only was Xiang Caiping's expression dark, but her voice was also cold. She looked at Su Peijian, feeling that this girl was too annoying. "Ask them to move." "Auntie, look, the boss is here. Don't you want it? Why don't you buy it?" Su Peijian's mocking tone made people feel uncomfortable. Xiang Kaiping didn't want to buy it in the first place. This made her even angrier. "Su Peijian, don't be like this. Auntie, look at you. How am I being like this? Didn't I say I would give it to you? Don't rush. I don't need you to give it to me." Xiang Kaiping looked at Su Peijian. It had nothing to do with her whether she was ugly or not. However, Su Qinghui had been such a gentleman when he was young, and now he had a daughter like this. Xiang Kaiping was truly emotional. Apart from feeling emotional, she also wanted to educate Su Peijian. Misu, as someone who has lived a few more years than you, I still want to give you some advice. You can't just look at the surface. Some people, some things. You don't understand, so don't say anything. You? Su Peijian didn't expect that one day she would be taught a lesson by a mistress like Xiang Kaiping. What did you say? Xiang Kaiping looked at Madame Luo and Madame Song coldly. She hadn't taken care of herself in the past few years, so she looked older than them. However, Madame Luo and Madame Song couldn't help but let go of her. Xiang Kaiping looked at the jade pendant on the counter. Boss, your staff just said that this jade pendant was discounted for 440,000 yuan. I don't like this number. I bought this jade Buddha as a gift. Just tell me if you can sell it for 390,000 yuan. If you can, I'll swipe my card now. The boss was stunned and looked at Xiang Kaiping. This jade pendant was indeed of good quality. However, he didn't expect Xiang Kaiping to be so straightforward. You can't sell it? Never mind then. Xiang Kaiping liked the jade Buddha very much. But it wasn't as if he couldn't get it. In fact, the price of 390,000 could still buy some good things. Excuse me. Yes, I can. It can be sold. After saying that, the boss wiped the non-existent sweat on his forehead. You are Miss Su's friend. Of course I can sell it at this price. Xiang Kaiping was about to pay by card, but she paused for a moment because of the owner's words. Sell it if you can. If you can't sell it, then don't. I don't need to give face to anyone. It was not right for the boss to say yes or no. Su Peijian and the other two stood there without moving. They didn't speak at this time. They didn't plan to speak for the time being. Looks like I can't. Since this was the case. If that's the case, I won't be able to do business. Xiang Caiping's expression was indifferent. She had no intention of staying. He turned around and walked out. Madame Luo glanced at Su Peijian, obviously waiting for her reaction. Su Peijian looked at Xiang Caiping's back and laughed coldly. If you can't afford it, just say it. Why do you have to say that you don't want to give me face? She turned to look at the boss of Bogu Zhai. Boss, you don't have to give me face. Just tell this Andy directly. Are you able to sell it or not? Miss Su, look at what you're saying. The boss finally saw through it. Su Peijian didn't get along with that woman just now. He had been in this business for a long time. His eyes were very sharp. That woman just now, he was afraid that she could really afford it. But he didn't want to offend Su Peijian. He thought about it. He came out from behind the counter and walked in front of Xiang Kaiping. Madam, if you really want it, don't care whose face it is. What do you think? Just 390,000. If you want it, I'll have someone wrap it up for you. Xiang Kaiping wanted to leave at first, but seeing the boss's attitude, she wasn't an unreasonable person. Boss, have you thought it through? This isn't a matter of giving face or not. Are you sure you can sell it? Yes, of course. It would be a fool not to do a business worth hundreds of thousands. The boss waved his hand and signaled for the clerk to wrap up the jade Buddha. Look, are you going to swipe it or transfer it? I'm old, I don't know how to use those transfer tools. Just swipe it. After saying this, Xiang Kaiping followed the clerk to swipe her card. At this point, both Su Peijian and Madame Luo could see it. So Xiang Kaiping was really rich? Madame Luo and Madame Song were fine. This was someone else's family business and they couldn't interfere. But Su Peijian's expression didn't look too good. She remembered that she had heard Li Qianxue mention it once. Su Qingsang's mother was just an ordinary person. So what did it mean for her to buy such an expensive jade pendant with her status? Su Peijian suddenly felt gloomy. She felt that Su Qinghui might have given Xiang Kaiping money without her knowing. It meant that he didn't feel bad spending other people's money. Otherwise, how could he be so generous? Xiang Kaiping didn't know what Su Peijian was thinking. After swiping her card, she took the jade pendant from the clerk's hand. The boss finally realized what had happened. He had heard about what had happened from the clerk in the shop. He glanced at the clerk again. The clerk's face was pale, and it was obvious that she regretted her poor judgment. After all, now that the boss was here, the commission from buying the jade pendant had nothing to do with her. The boss glared at the clerk. He suddenly felt that this clerk of Bo Guzhai needed more training. Seeing that Xiang Kaiping was about to leave with the jade pendant, he signaled for the clerk to take out a bracelet that was priced at about 60,000. Madam, look, our clerk's attitude was not very good just now. He neglected you. The quality of this jade pendant is not bad. We'll give it to you as a gift. Please accept it. Next time you want something, come to Bo Guzhai again. Xiang Kaiping glanced at the box in the boss's hand. Compared to Su Peijian, the boss was much more observant. Thank you. She accepted the jade pendant from the clerk's hand graciously. This way she had gotten a bargain. Next time I like something, I'll come again. After saying this, Xiang Kaiping turned around and walked out. If Su Peijian had only been guessing whether Su Qinghui had given money to Xiang Kaiping, now the boss's actions confirmed her suspicions. As soon as the woman swiped her card, the boss gave her a bracelet. What did it mean? It meant that the woman had swiped a card from someone the boss knew. She was overthinking and was certain that there was something going on between Xiang Kaiping and Su Qinghui. Chapter 386. However, she still cared about her reputation. She couldn't start a fight with Xiang Kaiping here. The only thing he could do now was to slowly think of a way to teach this woman a lesson. Su Peijian was still thinking about how to teach that woman a lesson. Madame Luo, who had been watching the show from the side, suddenly let out a cry of surprise. What's wrong? Auntie? The necklace I was wearing just now is gone. As Madame Luo spoke, Xiang Kaiping had already walked to the door. Xiang Kaiping heard her scream, but she didn't stop. Wasn't your necklace here just now? Mrs. Song quickly said. I saw it just now. Yes. Where's my necklace? Madame Luo's face was full of anxiety. She lowered her head and looked around, but she couldn't find it. Look again. Wasn't this necklace given to you by your old Luo? How about millions? That's right. Madame Luo panicked. She searched her body a few times and even her pockets, but there was nothing. She panicked and said without thinking, Did you see me wearing it just now? Did he enter the store? I didn't even notice. Could it have fallen in the car? Su Peijian looked at the anxious look on Madame Luo's face. From the corner of her eye, she saw that Xiang Kaiping had already walked out of Bo Guzhai. She suddenly used an extremely soft voice and spoke carelessly. Auntie, you were standing with that lady just now. Did you accidentally fall on her? Su Peijian said that she accidentally dropped it there, but the hidden meaning in her words was that Xiang Kaiping had taken it. The boss of Bo Guzhai watched this sudden turn of events without saying a word. The grudges between these people were not something a jade shop owner like him could interfere with. Madame Song seemed to have been reminded of something. Oh, that's right. She was standing so close just now. Who knows if she accidentally dropped it into her bag. Xiang Kaiping was carrying a huge bag. The label of a well-known wool brand was very eye-catching. Su Peijian didn't say anything else after that. Madame Luo and Madame Song went out together, blocking Xiang Caiping's way. Xiang Caiping's mood had been affected by the appearance of Su Peijian and the others. But now he had bought the jade pendant that he wanted to give to his daughter. She was in a good mood. There was a subway station nearby, but she wanted to take a taxi back. Anyway, it's not far. However, before she could reach the taxi, her path was blocked by someone. Let me have a look at your bag. Madame Luo spoke rather rudely. Xiang Kaiping frowned, clutched the two bags in her hands tightly and took a step back. What do you mean? What do you mean? Madame Luo's necklace was her favorite necklace. Her husband had given it to her on her birthday. Now that she saw Xiang Kaiping carrying the bag, she couldn't help but wonder if she had dropped it. I lost my necklace. I suspect it fell into your bag. Bring it over and let me check it. Just now, Madame Luo and Madame Song had each grabbed her hand and refused to let her go. Xiang Kaiping was already quite unhappy. That would be even more outrageous for these two. Was he implying that she had taken something? Xiang Caiping's face darkened. She looked very gloomy. Get out of my way. I won't have what you want in this bag. If you don't let me see it, then you have a guilty conscience. Seeing her like this, Madame Luo felt that she was even more suspicious. Don't think that you are rich just because you bought a jade pendant and spent hundreds of thousands. Let me tell you, my necklace is worth millions. If you are smart, hurry up and take it out. Otherwise, I will call the police. Call the police? Xiang Kaiping wanted to laugh. If you want to call the police, go ahead. I said it. I didn't take it. What a rude attitude. Madame Luo didn't want to be polite. She and Li Qinxue had a good personal relationship. Since this woman was the mistress from back then, she would teach her a lesson and help Li Qinxue vent her anger. Do you think you didn't take it just because you said you didn't? Bring me the bag, I want to check it. Sorry? You don't have the right. Xiang Kaiping had been doing business for a few years. What kind of people hadn't she seen? She naturally understood a person like Madame Luo. She bullied the weak and feared the strong. To put it bluntly, she was just a fox pretending to be a tiger. I don't have the right? Madame Luo didn't even care that she was on the road. I lost my necklace. I suspect that it fell in your hands. If you don't let me see it, you must be up to no good. Madame Luo was too sharp and aggressive. Xiang Caiping's expression was calm and unhurried. Madame Song glanced at her from the side and took a step forward. Madam, since you really didn't take the necklace, why don't you let us check it? We're just taking a look. Nothing will happen. Isn't it more suspicious for you to hide it from us like this? Xiang Caiping glanced at Madame Song coldly. She had no doubt that these two women were deliberately making things difficult for her. She looked at Su Peijian, who had been watching from the side without saying a word. Speaking of which, Miss Su must have been instigating this. She really didn't like this girl. She was sharp, petty, and not magnanimous. More importantly, she had the heart but not the guts. She obviously didn't get along with her, but she didn't come forward herself. Instead, she pushed the other two elders who could almost be her mother. Li Qinxue was such a capable person. How could she raise such a daughter? Thinking about it, she found it really interesting. I will say it again, I didn't take it. My bag is fine too. My bag is fine too. I don't think I will have what you want. Please move aside. She had put the jade pendant and the jade bracelet into her bag carefully. One of the two bags was for knitting a scarf for Su Qingsang, and the other was for Huo Jinyao. The knitting was secondary. She didn't want these people to touch her things. Madame Luo didn't expect Xiang Caiping to be so rude. She was annoyed. I think it fell in your bag. Give it to me. Xiang Caiping didn't expect that Madame Luo would dare to hit her. Instinctively, she tried to protect her bag and put it behind her. Unexpectedly, Madame Song saw it and came forward to help. Xiang Caiping panicked and dodged to the side. She had suffered a lot when she was young, so she was naturally stronger than Madame Luo and Madame Song. However, the two of them were standing on the side of the road. She looked at Madame Luo's outstretched hand and dodged to the middle of the road without thinking. It was not rush hour, but there were still many cars on the road. Behind them, a car happened to be driving in their direction. Chapter 387. Even Su Peijian was stunned by the sudden turn of events. However, the women didn't react at all. They just stared at Xiang Caiping blankly, even forgetting to reach out to help her. Under the shocked gazes of the three of them, Xiang Caiping's body was sent flying by the car. The scene seemed to freeze at that moment. Everything seemed to be in slow motion. Su Peijian watched the woman's body fly. Then she fell. The moment Xiang Caiping fell, she was still thinking about the jade pendant she had bought for her daughter. She held the bag in her hands tightly. The bag flew out and her body hit a telephone pole by the side of the road. Then she fell. With a screech, Xiang Caiping's body rolled on the ground, then came to a complete stop. The driver got out of the car. Su Peijian and the others seemed to have finally come to their senses and went forward together. Su Peijian looked at Xiang Caiping lying in a pool of blood. There was only one thought in her mind. She couldn't be dead, could she? When Huo Jinyao received the news and rushed to the hospital, Xiang Caiping was already in the operating room. In the corridor, other than Madame Luo and Madame Song, Su Peijian was also there. When he saw her, Huo Jinyao slightly narrowed his eyes. His aura was shocking and Su Peijian couldn't help but shrink back. Su Qinghui also rushed over after receiving the news. He was in a meeting and came immediately after receiving the news. When he saw the guilty faces of Madame Luo and Madame Song, he was not in the mood to greet them. He only looked at Su Peijian. Peijian, what happened? He wasn't the only one who wanted to know. Huo Jinyao also wanted to know. He took a few steps forward and stood in front of Su Peijian. His cold eyes swept over her face without any warmth. I don't know either. Su Peijian was a little spoiled and a little willful. She had never taken anyone's life. Now that Xiang Caiping had been hit by a car and her life was uncertain, she began to feel afraid. That I really don't know. Enough. Su Qinghui's expression was a little ugly. It was rare for him to be so strict with Su Peijian. Tell me what happened. If she didn't know, how could she have sent Xiang Caiping to the hospital? Aye. Su Peijian was Su Qinghui's biological daughter. If she was so frightened, Madame Luo and Madame Song were even more afraid to speak. Huo Jinyao took a step forward and stood beside Su Qinghui. He stared at Su Peijian's face with sharp eyes. Miss Su, I suggest that you speak clearly. After all, there are surveillance cameras at the place where you just had a car accident. I just need to look at the surveillance and I can see everything. Aye. Su Peijian was even more afraid now. She swallowed and looked at her father and Huo Jinyao's gloomy faces. She told them what had happened in a very low voice. Of course, she simplified some things as much as possible. But how smart was Huo Jinyao? Just by listening to a few words, one could deduce half of the cause and effect. Stop talking about him. Even Su Qinghui could tell. Based on what happened today, it was obvious that Su Peijian wanted to make life difficult for Xiang Kaiping. Madame Luo and Madame Song were merely her helpers. After listening to the scene of Xiang Kaiping being hit by the car, Hu Jingyao was stunned. Su Qinghui couldn't take it anymore. He raised his hand and slapped Su Peijian's face. Su Peijian was stunned by the loud and heavy slap. Her face quickly swelled up. She covered her face and didn't dare to come back to her senses for a long time. Dad, you hit me? Yes, I hit you. Su Qinghui was very angry. He only felt a terrible headache. His head was buzzing. Su Peijian didn't dare to speak. Tears fell from the corners of her eyes. Half of it was because of the pain, and the other half was because she felt wronged. How dare Su Qinghui slap her in front of so many people? The humiliation was enough to make her cry. What did I say to you? What did I say to you? He had repeatedly told her to stay away from Xiang Kaiping and not to provoke her. But Su Peijian? She didn't listen to him at all. Instead, she turned a deaf ear to his words. How could he not be angry? Su Qinghui was so angry that his chest rose and fell violently. The huge anger made him completely lose his cool. Not only was he angry, but he was also disappointed and guilty. If Xiang Kaiping woke up one day and found out that it was Su Peijian who caused her car accident, what would she do? Su Qinghui didn't dare to think about it. Compared to his agitated self, Hu Jingyao was much calmer. Su Peijian naturally wanted to teach her a lesson. However, Su Qinghui's slap made him not rush to teach Su Peijian a lesson. His slender legs took a step forward, his tall body standing in front of Madame Luo and Madame Song. Madame Luo? Madame Song? Madame Luo and Madame Song were ordinary rich ladies. They usually went shopping, dressed up, and socialized with their husbands. They went to the spa and gossiped. Even if they looked down on people from a certain class, they wouldn't think of harming others. Now that Xiang Kaiping was in a car accident, both of them were frightened. Hu Jinyao's cold gaze suddenly swept over them. Their bodies trembled like leaves in the wind. Madams, I really didn't know that Hu Jinyao's mother-in-law would go and take a necklace worth millions from you. Madame Luo and Madame Song trembled even more. They didn't dare to respond to Hu Jinyao. Hu Jinyao stared at their frightened faces. He didn't plan to let it go just like that. Madame Xiang Kaiping is my wife's mother, my mother-in-law. Are you sure that she took your necklace? No. The two of them shook their heads quickly and snuggled up to each other tightly, almost hugging each other. Hu Jinyao snorted. That's good. After all, it's better to get to the bottom of this. Madams, don't you think so? Of course. Madame Luo and Madame Song were frightened. Hu Jinyao didn't think it was enough. Madame Luo, I remember that your family runs a department store business, right? Yes. Madame Luo didn't understand what Hu Jinyao wanted. Luoxing department store, Hu Jinyao added. Madame Luo's face turned even paler. Madame Song's family runs a retail and electronics business? Hu Jinyao had seen them at the party. Madame Song looked at Hu Jinyao with a pale face. What do you mean, President Hua? What did he mean? Hu Jinyao took out his phone and dialed a few numbers. He looked at Madame Luo and Madame Song on the phone. It's me. From now on, I will buy the shares of Luoxing Department Store and Kusong Group. Chapter 388. As soon as he said that, Madame Song and Madame Luo's bodies went limp and they fell to the ground. They looked at Hu Jinyao in disbelief. Madame Luo took a long time to gather her courage. Oh. President Hua, you can't do this. If that person in her family knew about this, her good days would come to an end. She was really nervous, so nervous that her voice began to tremble. There's nothing I can't do. Hu Jinyao hung up the phone, his expression extremely cold. He looked down at the two of them, his eyes emotionless. Everyone has to bear the consequences of their actions. You're not children anymore, are you? Big drops of sweat rolled down Madame Song's forehead. Madame Luo thought about the anger she might have toward her husband when she got home. Her eyes rolled back and she fainted. Hu Jinyao didn't look at the two people on the ground. He went straight to Su Peijian, who was still crying and had a pale face. He glanced at Su Peijian's face. The others had already packed up. She was the only one left now. You. Su Peijian had heard what Hu Jinyao said. She couldn't believe that Hu Jinyao would really do that. Just because of a small dispute? What about me? Hu Jinyao was patient with Su Qingsang, but it didn't mean that he was patient with others. Su Qinghui frowned. Under Hua Jinyao's dark gaze, he discreetly stepped in front of Su Peijian. "Jinyao, if there's anything, wait for Kaiping to come out." Hua Jinyao curled his lips slightly and looked at Su Chenghui mockingly. "Dad, are you saying that I should just let it go? I've already hit her." When Su Chenghui said this, he didn't sound very confident. Hua Jinyao smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes at all. If Su Qingsang were here, she would know how rare it was to see Hua Jinyao, who was always smiling in front of her. "Dad, what I mean is, she." He raised his hand and casually pointed in Su Peijian's direction. "She caused Su Qingsang's mother to get into a car accident, and you think that a slap is enough?" Su Peijian's body trembled at the meaning of his words. She instinctively stood beside Su Chenghui. Even though she had just been slapped by Su Chenghui didn't make her feel as scared as Hua Jinyao. Su Chenghui naturally felt his daughter's fear. He took a few steps to the side, half blocking Su Peijian's body. "Jinyao, that's not what I meant. I mean, there's nothing more important than Kaiping right now." Xiang Kaiping was still in the emergency room. Even if Hua Jinyao wanted to punish Su Peijian, he would have to wait until she woke up. That's not a conflict. Hua Jinyao raised his chin and his eyes were sharp. "The surgery won't end so soon anyway. I just happen to have time to settle the accounts." "Jinyao, I'm afraid Qingsang won't agree with your decision, right? Qingsang is not here now." "What? Can't I make the decision for you?" "That's not what I mean." "What do you mean, Dad?" Hua Jinyao took a step forward and stood in front of Su Chenghui. Su Chenghui was not short. He was 1.8 meters tall. However, in front of Hua Jinyao, who was 1.8 meters tall, he was still a little less imposing. "Hua Jinyao, I didn't say that this matter is over. But Kaiping is still in the operating room." Before he could finish his words, a nurse had already come out. Su Chenghui and Hua Jinyao thought that the surgery was over. They immediately went forward to ask the nurse about the situation. The nurse understood their feelings and explained briefly, "The surgery is not over yet. The patient is bleeding heavily. We're going to the blood bank to get type O blood now." The nurse was about to run to get the plasma as she spoke. Hua Jinyao looked at the nurse's face. He asked worriedly, "Do you have enough blood in the blood bank?" "Yes. Our hospital has more than enough type O blood." After saying this, the nurse ran away. Hua Jinyao was not completely relieved, but he was more or less relieved. He turned to look at Su Chenghui and found that his expression was a little strange. He thought that he was worried about Xiang Kaiping and sneered. "I've already called Qingsang to inform her. Dad, I really want to know how you plan to explain to Qingsang when she comes back." Didn't he stop him from punishing Su Peijian now? He didn't believe that he could stop him for a while, but he couldn't stop him forever. "I don't need to explain this matter to Qingsang. I only need to explain to Xiang Kaiping." Su Chenghui was very worried about Xiang Kaiping now. Not only was he worried, but he also blamed himself. He didn't expect that he couldn't stop Su Peijian from causing trouble for Xiang Kaiping. However, under the current situation, he couldn't let Hua Jinyao deal with Su Peijian first. After all, Su Peijian was Xiang Caiping's daughter, her biological daughter. "Is that so?" Hua Jinyao sneered and looked at Su Peijian, who was still pale. "I hope you can say the same thing when Qingsang comes back." "Jinyao, we're family. Is it a family?" Hua Jinyao interrupted him rudely and glanced in Su Peijian's direction. "Can you make Qingsang's mother get into a car accident just because we're family?" Su Peijian was already guilty and didn't dare to say anything, but Hua Jinyao's words made her feel very unconvinced. I didn't do it on purpose." Hua Jinyao's eyes were like arrows. "You made her get into a car accident without doing it on purpose. Then if you did it on purpose, wouldn't you want to kill her?" Su Peijian still wanted to say something, but Su Chenghui glared at her and said, "Shut up." Su Peijian didn't dare to say anything. The nurse came back with the type O blood and rushed into the operating room. Hua Jinyao was in no mood to pay attention to Su Peijian. He rushed over from the company and had a lot of things to deal with. His phone didn't stop ringing. He answered a few calls. Not long after, his assistant came over with a laptop and a pile of documents. Hua Jinyao was dealing with work in the corridor when his phone rang again. He was about to hang up but quickly picked up when he saw that it was Su Qingsang. "Qingsang? How's my mother?" Su Qingsang's voice was full of panic. "I've already bought the plane ticket. It'll take off in half an hour. Tell me first, how's my mother?" "Mom is still in surgery." Hua Jinyao glanced at the operating room. "I don't know the details yet. We'll only know when the doctor comes out." "Why did she get into a car accident?" Su Qingsang's face was full of anxiety. And why is she still in surgery? Hasn't it been a long time? Yes. The situation might be a little complicated. Chapter 389. Hu Jingyao didn't see it with his own eyes. According to the situation at the time, Xiang Caiping's body was sent flying and then fell to the ground. It was likely that her internal organs were damaged. He just didn't know where he fell. He didn't know much about this, so he didn't know what would happen. Then, Su Qingsang used to be a doctor, so she was used to calming the patient's family down. But when it really happened to her, she realized that she couldn't stay calm at all. Calm down first. He decided to take a nap after boarding the plane. I'll send someone to pick you up. You don't have to worry. I believe Mom will be fine. Hu Jingyao, She couldn't calm down or believe him. She had just acknowledged Xiang Caiping as her mother, and she had just developed a mother-daughter relationship with her. She thought she could make up for the motherly love she had missed for the past 20 years. But now she was afraid that she would lose the motherly love that she had just received. Hearing Su Qingsang's panicked voice, Hu Jingyao's heart ached slightly. He could understand Su Qingsang. It was like a drowning man catching a piece of driftwood. Those who had lost their loved ones would never be willing to lose their loved ones again. Thinking of the blow Su Qingsang would suffer if something really happened to Xiang Caiping, he couldn't find a way to comfort her. He heard a rustling sound. Su Qingsang seemed to have taken the phone away from her. Hu Jingyao took a deep breath and was about to comfort her when he heard a male voice on the other end of the phone. Junior sister, don't be like this. I believe Andy will be fine. Hu Jingyao's hand, which was holding the phone, froze. Zhuohongshan? It's him, right? Why did he go to Song City? Su Qingsang didn't say anything but just shook her head. Junior Marshal sister, don't be like this. Auntie is still waiting for you to take care of her. Su Qingsang glanced at him, thought about his words and finally nodded. That's more like it. Zhuohongshan had a surgery with the people from Song City Central Hospital today. As soon as she finished the surgery, she saw Su Qingsang coming to the hospital office in a panic to ask for leave, saying that she wanted to go back to Lin City. It was the first time he had seen such an expression on Su Qingsang's face. After asking, he found out that something had happened to Su Qingsang's mother. He knew that Su Qingsang was an illegitimate daughter and had always thought that she didn't have a mother by her side. But now he knew that wasn't the case. Taking off his scrubs, he accompanied her to the airport. He had planned to go back with Su Qingsang. However, he was one of the backbone this time and Su Qingsang had left. He couldn't be so willful. Senior brother, I'm fine. Thanks for driving me here. I'll board the plane myself later. Then be careful. Zhuohongshan was still very worried. However, it was obvious that Su Qingsang wanted to be alone. You can go back. I'm going in now. Su Qingsang took the suitcase from Zhuohongshan's hand and was about to enter the gate when she realized that her phone was still on. She was stunned for a moment, but she couldn't care about anything else now. Jingyao? I'm here. Hu Jingyao hadn't hung up the phone, so naturally he heard the conversation between Su Qingsang and Zhuohongshan. He wasn't jealous, but he definitely felt a little uncomfortable. Zhuohongshan's intentions were too obvious. Everyone could see it. Get on the plane first and get a good night's sleep. If there's anything else, we'll talk about it when you come back. Su Qingsang didn't say anything. In fact, it was really difficult to calm down at a time like this. Qingsang, listen to me. Hu Jingyao's voice was very calm. Our mother is still waiting for you to take care of her. If you keep this attitude, even if you come back, you won't be able to take good care of our mother. Strangely, the same words that Zhuohongshan had said just now didn't calm her down as much as Hu Jingyao did now. She nodded lightly and suppressed the tears in her eyes. I know. Thank you. Hu Jingyao. She looked at the people queuing up in front of her, put away her phone and walked into the gate. When Hu Jingyao called, Su Qinghui was also there. Mrs. Song was no longer there. Mrs. Luo had fainted and asked someone to help her to see a doctor. Su Peijian wanted to leave but couldn't. She was ordered by Su Qinghui to stay there. She could only sit on the other side of the bench in a daze, not moving. Su Qinghui heard Hu Jingyao's words. The look in his eyes was very complicated. Su Qingsang was coming back to take care of Xiang Caiping? In fact, the person who should be taking care of Xiang Caiping at this time should be Su Peijian. He looked at Su Peijian with some disappointment in his eyes. He had been working hard to give the best to Su Peijian. He had been educating Su Peijian. Since she was in high school, he had brought her with him and asked her to help with some business matters. He had also been very diligent in cultivating Su Peijian. She had been dancing, playing piano, calligraphy, and playing chess since she was a child. Su Peijian was also smart and attentive. However, she had learned so much, but he had forgotten to give her a good personality. He had always felt that as long as he was there, he would always be able to protect Su Peijian. She was a girl, so what if she was a little spoiled? Couldn't his daughter be a little spoiled? However, he didn't expect so many things to happen later. Now, Su Peijian had a conflict with Xiang Kaiping. Not only did the conflict happen, but Xiang Kaiping was also hurt. Su Qinghui really couldn't tell what he was feeling. If he could, he actually wanted to teach Su Peijian a lesson. However, he was afraid that Xiang Kaiping would feel bad if she knew. After struggling for a while, Su Qinghui's expression became a little ugly. Hua Jinyao didn't know that Su Qinghui's ugly expression was because of these struggles. He saw that Su Qinghui still had some conscience and knew that he was worried about Xiang Kaiping. He didn't care about him for the time being. He planned to deal with these business matters first, and when Su Qingsang came back, he could accompany her. 2 hours later, Xiang Kaiping finally came out of the operating room. At the same time, Su Qingsang's plane had also landed in Lin City. Hua Jinyao had already arranged for someone to pick her up. Now he was more concerned about Xiang Kaiping. "Doctor, how is my mother?" The spleen ruptured and caused a lot of bleeding. In addition, her lumbar vertebra was fractured and she hit her head. She has a slight concussion. Right. Did the patient hurt her lumbar vertebra before? Yes. Hua Jinyao remembered the fall in Rong City. At that time he thought that Xiang Kaiping was faking it, but he didn't expect that it was a real fall. Then be careful next time. We have already corrected her bones through surgery. But for the rest of the time, it's best that the patient doesn't move. She needs to rest in bed. Then she will slowly undergo rehabilitation. Okay, I understand. Hua Jinyao nodded, but he was still a little worried. It would take 100 days to recover from an injury, not to mention that Xiang Kaiping was not young anymore. After the fall last time, he didn't pay attention to it anymore, nor did he ask about it. Chapter 390. Hearing that, Su Qinghui almost couldn't stand still. Xiang Kaiping would be paralyzed? He looked at the doctor nervously for fear that he would say something bad. She won't be paralyzed. However, I'm afraid that the patient won't be able to exert force on her lumbar spine for a long time. She'll be in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. The doctor understood the family's concerns. Rehabilitation will be good in the future. It won't affect her movements. But you still have to be careful. After all, she's not young anymore. If the rehabilitation is not good, I'm afraid that the disease will be permanent. Okay, we'll be careful. Hua Jinyao began to plan to hire professional care workers, nutritionists and physiotherapists. When the patient was in the car accident, she fell on her head. We've already examined her. Other than a concussion, there was no intracranial bleeding. It shouldn't be a big problem. The most serious is the hemorrhage caused by the rupture of the spleen. The patient also went into shock several times during the surgery because of the hemorrhage. After the surgery, we've repaired the ruptured spleen. However, the body is weak because of the hemorrhage. It will take some time to recover. Good doctor, does that mean that she has no other problems now? Not for the time being. The patient's anesthesia hasn't worn off yet. When she wakes up, you can call us for a detailed examination. After all, a head injury could be serious or minor. Although the examination had been done, the results would only be known when the patient woke up. Thank you, doctor. Hua Jinyao took care of the rest. He didn't let Su Qinghui get involved at all. When Su Qingsang arrived at the hospital, Xiang Kaiping was already in the ward. Hua Jinyao was sitting not far from the bed. There was a laptop in front of him and a pile of reports and documents beside him. He seemed to be very busy. Yang Wenchang stood behind her with a few documents in his hand, obviously waiting for Hua Jinyao to sign. Jinyao? Wife. Hua Jinyao saw her and stood up immediately. Su Qingsang didn't look at him but rushed to the bed. How is my mother? How is she? Xiang Caiping's face was pale and she lay motionless on the bed. Su Qingsang's eyes were red. She really wished that she was the one who got into the car accident. Hua Jinyao signed the documents in his hand and handed them to Yang Wenchang, gesturing for him to leave. After Yang Wenchang left with the documents, he stepped forward and stood in front of Su Qingsang. Your mom is fine for now. Hua Jinyao knew what she was thinking and repeated the doctor's words. That's the situation. The anesthetic hasn't worn off yet. Plus, he lost too much blood before, so he might only wake up tomorrow. Excessive blood loss? Did you get a blood transfusion? I lost 600 cc. 600. Su Qingsang looked at Xiang Kaiping, her eyes full of heartache. What about now? Are you all right now? Sort of. Rehabilitation is very important. Hua Jinyao didn't intend to hide it from her, so he told her about the problem with Xiang Caiping's lumbar spine. Su Qingsang looked guilty. It's all my fault. He should have paid more attention to it when he was in Rong City. I shouldn't have come back when my mom asked me to take care of her. What if she falls ill? Don't worry. It'll be fine. Hua Jinyao held her hand tightly. You didn't know her identity at that time, did you? Furthermore, we will hire the best physiotherapist and doctor to treat him. I think he'll be fine. Su Qingsang didn't say anything but nodded vigorously. Hua Jinyao held her hand, only to find that it was very cold. He felt a little sad and helpless. He held her hand tightly and put it in his arms. Your hand is so cold. Didn't Wen Chang turn on the air conditioner when he went to pick you up? He did. Su Qingsang shook her head, her eyes still on Xiang Kaiping. I just feel uneasy. Hua Jinyao didn't say anything. Su Qingsang was in a bad mood, so she opened the car window for some fresh air. However, her hands and face were cold from the wind. Reaching out, he pulled her body into his embrace. He hugged her tightly and forcefully. Wife, you don't need to feel uneasy. There is no need to be unsettled. You are not alone. You have me. Su Qingsang didn't look up. Her face was still pressed against his chest. She looked at Xiang Kaiping. Why do you think my mom has such a hard life? In the first half of her life, her lover was taken away and separated from her own flesh and blood. In the second half of her life, she thought she could finally enjoy some happiness. However, something like this happened. Hua Jinyao, I really wish that I was the one who got into the car accident. That way, wife. Hua Jinyao suddenly held her shoulders and made her look into his eyes. Don't say things like that. Su Qingsang looked at him blankly. Hua Jinyao's expression was quite serious and serious. Your mom is very important to you, but you are also very important to me. Su Qingsang bit her lip and couldn't find her voice for a long time. Finally, she nodded gently. I understand. Wife, I hope you understand. You can call me selfish or cold-blooded. But I'm really glad that you weren't the one who got into an accident. Otherwise, Hua Jinyao couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't do something crazy. Su Qingsang was shocked by his expression. Her uneasy heart calmed down a lot. She reached out and hugged Hua Jinyao. She looked at Xiang Kaiping, whose face was as pale as a sheet. Hua Jinyao, I won't say this anymore. I just hope that my mom will be fine now. Don't worry. She will be fine. I hope so. Su Qingsang closed her eyes. Studying in Song City for more than a week had been a very happy thing. After all, she could exchange ideas and learn from so many seniors. But now, all that happiness had turned into self-blame. She was very regretful and upset. If she had known, she wouldn't have gone to Song City. If she hadn't gone, Xiang Kaiping might have been fine. Thinking of this, Su Qingsang suddenly let go. She took a step back and looked at Hua Jinyao. By the way, where is the person who hit my mom? Where is he? Hua Jinyao frowned and thought about what to say. What's wrong? Escape? You didn't catch him? Su Qingsang only heard Hua Jinyao say that Xiang Kaiping was hit by a car. She didn't say who hit her. I've already sent that person to the traffic police. Hua Jinyao's voice was calm. Thinking of Su Peijian, he decided to tell her about it. In fact, although your mom got into a car accident because that person drove a little too fast, you can't completely blame him. But the person who caused her car accident can't be completely blamed on that person. What do you mean? Su Qingsang suddenly became nervous. Hua Jinyao didn't hide anything and told her about Su Peijian. He was objective. When Xiang Caiping's surgery was over, he asked someone to pull up the surveillance video. Chapter 391. That's how it is. Su Peijian? Su Qingsang's face darkened. Her lips were pursed into a straight line, and there was obvious anger in her clear watery eyes. It's good that you're back. Your father stopped me from dealing with Su Peijian just now. Tell me how you want to punish her. In fact, Su Peijian didn't do anything. It had always been Madame Luo and Madame Song who did the dirty work. Even though the ones who did it were Madame Luo and Madame Song. However, if Su Peijian hadn't played tricks behind the scenes, the two of them wouldn't have made things difficult for Xiang Kaiping. In the end, it was all because of Su Peijian. Su Qingsang didn't know. In fact, she had just promised Li Qianxue to leave Lin City. She could empathize with Su Peijian. She had been slapped by Xiang Kaiping, and there was no way she could get over it. However, she should not have harmed Xiang Kaiping. Su Qingsang felt a little conflicted. Before she could figure out what kind of price to make Su Peijian pay, someone knocked on the door of the ward. The man who came in was Su Qinghui. He was carrying 2 bags in his hands. He paused for a moment when he saw Su Qingsang, but he wasn't surprised. He left the moment Xiang Kaiping was out of danger. Hu Jinyao thought that he left because he was too ashamed to face Xiang Kaiping. He didn't expect that he went to buy dinner. It's getting late. You guys should eat something. Hu Jinyao stood still. Su Qingsang looked at Su Qinghui, her biological father, who had never done anything for her. No need. Su Qingsang's voice was cold. I don't want to eat the food you give me. Qingsang? Su Qinghui was stunned. He didn't expect that. Su Qingsang's expression did not change. Where's Su Peijian? Hiding after getting into trouble? Su Qinghui frowned at her words. What do you mean? She's also tired, so I asked her to go back and rest. Tired? Why is she tired? Su Qingsang stared at Su Qinghui's face. Her eyes were sharp and full of hatred. How could she be tired? She took a step forward and stood in front of Su Qinghui. She doesn't have to do it herself. He didn't even need to move his mouth. Just one look, one expression, and someone will stand up for her, right? Su Qingsang. Su Qinghui shouted in a low voice. Noticing Hu Jinyao's rather unfriendly gaze, he took a few deep breaths and said, Peijian didn't want this to happen. It was done by Madame Luo and Madame Song. Hu Jinyao had already punished them. You too, their punishment is their business. Where's Su Peijian? No matter how good-tempered she was, she had a bottom line. Tell me, where is Su Peijian? Qingsang, no matter what, Peijian is your sister. Moreover, she now knew that she was wrong. Su Peijian is my sister and Xiang Kaiping is my mother. Su Qingsang raised her voice and glared at Su Qinghui coldly. What's more, Dad, ask yourself, did Su Peijian ever see me as her little sister? Does she really think of me as her sister? Su Qinghui was speechless. He couldn't say a word to Su Qingsang's question. Qingsang, let's not discuss this matter for now. But I believe that if your mother wakes up, she won't want you to deal with Peijian. After all, do you think my mother won't want me to deal with Su Peijian? Su Qingsang acted as if she had heard a joke. Dad, are you out of your mind? What reason did Xiang Kaiping have to forgive Su Peijian? I think I might have to remind you that in Japan, Su Peijian called me an illegitimate daughter, the daughter of a mistress. My mother slapped her in the face. I know that. That slap made Su Peijian do all those things. But Dad, look at your conscience. Is my mother a mistress? Who caused me to become an illegitimate daughter? Su Qinghui couldn't say a word. He had always thought that Su Qingsang was a good-tempered person. He didn't know that even a good-tempered person would lose her temper one day. Dad, I don't ask you to be nice to me. I don't ask you to be nice to my mother. You are married now and have your own family. You have a wife and children. I understand all that. But your family is family. Isn't my family my family? Su Peijian was slapped by my mother. Both you and Andy felt the same. You and Andy came to find me one by one. If you want to blame me, blame my mother. What about my mother? My mother was hit by a car because of Su Peijian. Does Su Peijian want to just let it go without paying any price? Su Qingsang's words were filled with anger. Even if Su Peijian wasn't the main person responsible. But she was still responsible, wasn't she? I've already hit her. Su Qinghui thought of the tears on Su Peijian's face when she came home and felt a little heartache. No matter how angry he was with Su Peijian, she was still his daughter who he had loved for so many years. I've really taught her a lesson. She knows she was wrong. Murderers also said they knew they were wrong after killing someone. Su Qingsang didn't intend to let it go just like that. But why does the law still sentence them? Qingsang. Su Qinghui didn't know where to start. He had a stomach full of words, but he couldn't say a word. Get out. I don't want to see you. Heartless. Unfaithful to Li Qianxue and Xiang Kaiping. Said he loved Xiang Kaiping but married Li Qianxue. Said he loved Li Qianxue but couldn't forget Xiang Kaiping. Xiang Kaiping was in trouble, but he couldn't even help her vent her anger. Su Qingsang didn't think so before, but now she really felt that her father was a scumbag. Qingsang, get out. Su Qingsang's voice was even higher than before. Neither my mother nor I want to see you. Su Qinghui didn't say anything. He raised the lunchbox in his hand and put it down again. He took one last look at Hu Jinyao and put the lunchbox on the table beside him. Qingsang, no matter how angry you are, you still have to eat. I'm sorry about your mother. Don't worry. I'll definitely teach Peijian a good lesson. Su Qingsang didn't say anything. She didn't believe that Su Qinghui could bear to teach Su Peijian a lesson. But now she didn't want to lower herself to his level. Su Qinghui left, leaving only Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao in the ward. Su Qingsang looked at the lunchbox and didn't touch it. The sky outside darkened. Xiang Kaiping hadn't woken up yet. There were many tubes in her body. Su Qingsang felt a pang of heartache. She hadn't eaten lunch. After receiving the news, she rushed back as soon as she could. Now she was thirsty and hungry. But she had no appetite at all. Hu Jinyao stood beside her and put his arm around her shoulders, silently encouraging her. Sometimes I really hope that Su Qinghui isn't my father. Hu Jinyao didn't say anything. His gaze was deep. In fact, Su Qinghui's actions today puzzled him again. Chapter 392. He was different from Su Qingsang, who had lost her mind because of anger. Hu Jinyao had been calm. He could tell that even though Su Qinghui had calmed down, he could still feel the anger in his heart. The anger towards Su Peijian. He believed that he meant it when he said he would teach Su Peijian a lesson. It wasn't fake. But if he could teach Su Peijian a lesson for Xiang Kaiping and even his daughter whom he had doted on for more than 20 years, why was he so cold to Su Qingsang, Xiang Caiping's daughter? The feeling that Hu Jinyao had felt before came again. There was a flash of doubt in the depths of his heart. Before he could think clearly, his phone rang. It was from Yang Wenchang. The driver had been arrested by the traffic police. But because Xiang Kaiping fell out of the car herself, she had to take the main responsibility. But the driver was also detained for dangerous driving. Hu Jinyao hung up the phone and told Su Qingsang about it. That man drove a little fast, but he didn't. The driver drove a little fast, but he wasn't speeding at that time. So there shouldn't be any more severe punishment than being detained for a few days and having his driver's license revoked. Su Qingsang didn't speak. She looked at Xiang Kaiping and said, "I don't care what happens to those people now. I just want my mother to wake up soon. Mom will be fine. She will." Xiang Kaiping was a very good person. Good people would be rewarded. Hu Jinyao convinced Su Qingsang. She looked at the dinner Su Qinghui brought. "If you put it in the room, you can smell it. Let's eat." He had asked Yang Wenchang to order food. "It'll be a waste if we don't eat." Su Qingsang glanced at him. Was he afraid of wasting food? "I don't want to eat the food he brought." Su Qingsang wasn't angry. If Su Qinghui still wanted to protect Su Peijian, she really couldn't eat the food he brought. "I think you should eat." Hu Jinyao opened the lunchbox and took out the food inside. "Think about it. Your mother is still unconscious. You can't do anything to your father. Why don't you take this opportunity to torture your father? Is it to avenge your mother?" When he met Su Qingsang's disapproving gaze, he raised his hand. "I'm telling the truth. Think about it. You should be tormenting your father with all your might right now. What's the point of asking him to deliver food? You should let him do other things like take care of your mother and—" "Nonsense again. Who asked him to take care of my mother?" Su Qinghui was afraid that Su Qinghui would only make things worse. "Yes, our mom doesn't need him to take care of her. It's enough for us to take care of him." Hu Jinyao's words made Su Qingsang glare at him, but she was in a much better mood. She sat down by the bed and looked at Xiang Caiping's pale face. Her voice was very soft. "My mother won't want him to take care of her." Xiang Caiping's love for Su Qinghui was so strong. How could she let him take care of her now that she hated him so much? "Let's eat." Su Qingsang had no appetite, but she still ate a little. After dinner, Su Qingsang asked the doctor on duty about Xiang Caiping's medical history. He then asked for more details. The doctor on duty was surnamed Jiang. Dr. Jiang showed Su Qingsang the list. Su Qingsang was also a medical student, so she read through all the lists. Su Qingsang was stunned when she saw the blood transfusion form and the cost on it. Was Xiang Kaiping typo? She remembered that she was. Before she could think about it, Dr. Jiang had already said, "Dr. Su, don't worry. Your mother will be fine. And your husband has already paid for the blood transfusion." Su Qingsang didn't want to ask about that, but she still nodded. Although Dr. Jiang worked in the same hospital as Su Qingsang, they were usually in different departments and didn't have much contact. However, he was also a wonderful person. He winked at Su Qingsang. "Speaking of which, you have a really good husband. Your mother came not long after she was sent here. He seems to be quite busy with work, but he has been busy all the time. He is considerate." Su Qingsang looked at him, a little shy but also a little satisfied. He was obviously praising Hu Jinyao, but she felt happier than if he was praising herself. He is quite good. You have to cherish him. Dr. Zhang's expression was a little teasing. Just because he is so attentive to his mother-in-law, you have to treat him better. I know. Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed. She put the stack of medical records back in Dr. Zhang's hand. Alright, I'll go back first if there's nothing else. Okay. You're a doctor too. You know everything you need to know. Take good care of your mother. I will. The thought that flashed through Su Qingsang's mind disappeared just like that. It was already late when she returned to the ward. Wu Jinyao was still dealing with work. Seeing her come back, he put down the pen in his hand. How is it? What did the doctor say? Nothing. I just wanted to know the basic situation. She also wanted to take better care of Xiang Kaiping. Wu Jinyao nodded. Su Qingsang looked at him and stood beside him. Her eyes fell on the computer and the documents in front of him. If you are really busy, why don't you go home first? I'll be here today. It's okay. If you are not at home, I will be bored if I go home. Wu Jinyao pulled her to sit on his lap. You don't have to be so polite with me. I like to be with you. Su Qingsang nodded and sighed in her heart. Then what about your shower and change clothes? I will go home again tomorrow morning, Wu Jinyao said indifferently. Su Qingsang nodded and wrapped her arms around Wu Jinyao's waist. Wu Jinyao, will my mother wake up tomorrow? Yes, definitely. Really? Su Qingsang was not as confident as him. Will my mother really not be paralyzed? I asked Dr. Jiang, but he is still worried. Definitely not. If Lin City can't be cured, we will go to Rong City. If Rong City can't cure her, we will go abroad. There will always be a place that can cure our mother. Okay. Since he said so, Su Qingsang could only believe him. She wrapped her arms around Wu Jinyao's hand and gently rubbed her face against his chest. Wu Jinyao. Yes. Thank you. With him by her side, no matter what difficulties she faced, she felt at ease and at ease. Wu Jinyao wrapped his arms around her waist and looked at the top of her head. We are husband and wife. Su Qingsang did not say anything. She was now completely focused on Xiang Kaiping. She only hoped that she would get better soon and wake up soon. That night, Su Qingsang did not sleep well. She had dreams the whole night. Wu Jinyao did not sleep. He sat by the bed and looked at Su Qingsang's face. He reached out and held her hand, silently comforting her. His palm was warm. Su Qingsang felt the warmth of his palm and slowly calmed down. Finally, she fell asleep. The next day, Su Qingsang woke up very early. She did not sleep well in the first half of the night, but she slept well in the second half of the night. She was in high spirits. Chapter 393. Fortunately, Xiang Kaiping was in good condition. Her vital signs were stable. Wu Jinyao just came out of the bathroom. Seeing Su Qingsang let out a sigh of relief, he took a few steps forward. Why didn't you sleep a little longer? I saw that you didn't sleep much last night. I did. You're the one who didn't sleep much. I'm used to it. Wu Jinyao squeezed her palm. I've asked Yang Wenchang to bring breakfast over. You eat a little later. Don't be too tired. I've asked him to find 2 caregivers. If there's anything, let them do it. I'm fine. And I don't need a caregiver for the time being. I want to take care of my mother myself. I don't want you to be too tired. Wu Jinyao didn't agree with her decision. Honey, you have to understand that your mother can't recover in a day or two. She needs to be taken care of for a long time. You can't be alone all the time. Tigers still need to take naps. You can't make yourself sick just to take care of your mother, can you? I know. Su Qingsang couldn't refute him. Then I promise you that I'll take care of her today. When she wakes up, I'll see what happens. Okay. As long as she didn't insist on taking care of her himself. Yang Wenchang had already arrived with breakfast in his hands. But there was only one. What do you want to eat? I'm going home. Wu Jinyao looked at the time. I have a meeting today. I might not be able to come over until the afternoon. It's okay. Su Qingsang knew that he was tired after 2 days. You can go and do your work. I can handle it here. Besides, I'm a staff member of this hospital myself. They'll help. That's good. Wu Jinyao patted her on the shoulder. Call me if you need anything. Okay. Before he left, Su Qingsang stepped forward and hugged him. She quickly let go. She took a step back with a determined look in her eyes. Wu Jinyao was a little moved. If Yang Wenchang hadn't been standing next to him, he would have held the woman in his arms and kissed her. Let's go. He gestured for Yang Wenchang to walk out. After Yang Wenshang turned around, Hu Jinyao leaned over and kissed Su Qingsang on the cheek. Su Qingsang glanced at Yang Wenshang nervously, then gently patted him on the back. However, there was a faint smile on his face. I'll have someone send you lunch. The food in your hospital isn't that good. Yes. Su Qingsang nodded and watched Hu Jinyao walk out. She could still feel the warmth of his lips on her cheek. She blinked her eyes and turned back to sit by the bed. She took out the lunchbox. He looked at Xiang Kaiping, who was still asleep. Mom, look, if you don't wake up, I'll have to eat breakfast alone again. Wake up quickly. When you wake up, you can have breakfast with me. Xiang Kaiping was still lying motionless. Su Qingsang's eyes were a little wet, but she was not in a hurry. He finished his breakfast. She fetched some water to wipe Xiang Kaiping's face and hands. When he was done, the doctor came to check on him. Yesterday, Dr. Jiang was not here. Today, 2 other doctors were here. He was also the one who operated on Xiang Kaiping yesterday. Dr. Su, are you taking care of her here by yourself? Dr. Li looked at Su Qingsang and then at Xiang Kaiping. Your mother's condition is good today. The anesthesia has worn off. She should wake up later. You don't have to worry. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Li. You're welcome. It's just that her waist has been injured before. She needs to be more careful in the future. Otherwise, it might affect her life and actions in the future. I know. I'll be careful. Su Qingsang was also a doctor, so Dr. Li did not say anything more. Su Qingsang saw them off. When she looked up, she saw Su Qinghui standing at the door. He was holding a fruit basket in one hand and a women's bag in the other. He stood at the door and seemed to have been there for a while. He wanted to come in just now, but because there was a doctor inside, he did not come in. Su Qingsang's lips were pressed into a straight line. She looked at Su Qinghui coldly. She turned around and wanted to enter the ward. Su Qinghui wanted to follow, but Su Qingsang raised her hand and was about to close the door. Qingsang. Su Qinghui took a step forward and blocked the door with his foot, not letting Su Qingsang close it. Get out. My mother won't want to see you. Qingsang, this is what you want, not what your mother wants. What I want is what my mother wants. Su Qingsang blocked the door with her body and looked resistant. I said, my mother won't want to see you. Qingsang, I'm your father. Su Qinghui was a little annoyed by Su Qingsang's attitude. Su Qingsang stood up and looked at Su Qinghui in front of her. It's rare that you still remember that you're my father. I thought that in your heart, only Su Peijian is your daughter. You? I what? Su Qingsang did not budge at all. Go. I said that my mother won't want to see you. Su Qinghui looked at her and took a deep breath. You're not calm now. I won't argue with you. I'm very calm. Su Qingsang looked at him. I'm very calm. That's why I can stand here and talk to you. Otherwise, I should rush to the Su family right now and teach Su Peijian a lesson. I said, I've already taught her a lesson. Yes. You should have slapped her. Su Qingsang nodded. I got it. You can go now. Qingsang. Su Qinghui looked at Su Qingsang and did not want to argue with her. I came here today not only to see your mother but also to give you this. As he spoke, he raised the bag in his hand. Su Qingsang saw that there was blood on the bag. The blood covered the color of the bag, but she could tell that it was Xiang Kaiping's. She reached out and took it. Why is my mother's bag with you? After your mother got into a car accident yesterday, this fell on the road. Peijian picked it up for her, but it fell in her car yesterday. She gave it to me when she got home. Really? Thank her. Su Qingsang's tone was neither cold nor warm. Su Qinghui was not angry. There's a gift from your mother in this bag. I heard that she went to Boguzhai to buy you that gift. Su Qinghui did not know what to feel. He really did not expect that Su Qingsang and Xiang Kaiping could develop such a deep relationship in such a short time. Su Qingsang did not speak. She took the bag and opened it. There were 2 boxes wrapped in red flannels. They were about the same size. The words Boguzhai were printed on the packaging. She picked up one of them and opened it. There was a jade Buddha pendant inside. The jade pendant was obviously a good thing. Could not be bought without hundreds of thousands of yuan. Su Qingsang looked at the pendant inside and suddenly had an urge to cry. She lowered her head and did not look at Su Qinghui. Chapter 394. Su Qingsang was touched for a while. Before she had time to look at the other box, she found that Su Qinghui had entered the ward. She was so angry that she almost wanted to flare up. However, Xiang Kaiping, who was sleeping on the bed, seemed to be waking up. Mom? Su Qingsang quickly stepped forward, put her bag aside, stood in front of the bed, and reached out to hold Xiang Caiping's hand. "Mom? Are you awake?" On the bed, Xiang Caiping's eyes were moving. She was in pain all over. Hearing her daughter's voice, she opened her eyes with great difficulty. "Ching." Xiang Caiping's voice was stuck in her throat after only one word. She had slept for an entire night and lost too much blood. Her body was weak, and her voice was extremely hoarse and unpleasant to hear. "Mom, don't say anything yet." Su Qingsang quickly poured a glass of warm water. She wet a cotton swab and moistened her lips with it. He poured another cup and put the straw in it. He lifted her head and motioned for her to suck through the straw. At the same time, he pressed the bedside bell to call the doctor. Xiang Caiping felt better after drinking some water. She looked at Su Qingsang, blinked, and finally recognized who the person in front of her was. Before she had finished her water, the doctor came. Xiang Caiping was given a routine checkup and asked a few questions. At last, Dr. Li looked at Su Qingsang and said, "Dr. Su, since your mother is awake, her concussion should be fine. The rest of the body will slowly recover and it should be fine." "Thank you, Dr. Li." Su Qingsang breathed a sigh of relief. "Are you sure there won't be any side effects?" "I don't think so. Just pay more attention to your waist." All right, I will." Su Qingsang sent the doctor away and stood in front of the bed again. She looked at Xiang Caiping and said, "Mom, the anesthesia has worn off. You might feel a little pain. If you really feel uncomfortable, I'll prescribe some painkillers for you." Xiang Caiping shook her head. She was in pain indeed. Her entire body ached. But now she couldn't care less about the pain. "Qingsang?" After drinking the water, Xiang Caiping's throat felt much better. Her voice was not as hoarse as before. Why did you come back? Aren't you in Song City?" "Mom?" Su Qingsang put the water aside and carefully put her head back on the pillow. "You're already like this. How could I not come back?" "Eh? Look at you." Xiang Caiping was a little anxious. She wanted to get up, but Su Qingsang pressed her shoulder down. "Mom, don't be in such a hurry to move. Your lumbar spine is injured. He needed to recover properly during this period of time. You mustn't move around, or you'll have a lingering illness in the future." Xiang Caiping's body did not move, but her eyes were full of anxiety. "Child, why did you come back? This job was very important. Hurry back." "I'm fine." "How could you say that you're fine?" Su Qingsang felt like crying. In the past, he had read the news that some parents chose not to tell their children about their illnesses or surgeries during the college entrance examination so as not to affect their children. At that time, she couldn't understand why there would be such a parent. But now that she had encountered it, she was so touched that she wanted to cry. "Mom, work is fine. It was true. I've already asked for leave. Don't worry. I will accompany you. It's all my fault. I've held you back." Xiang Caiping looked guilty. "Mom." What Xiang Caiping said made Su Qingsang want to cry. She held her hand and said softly, "Don't be like this. You didn't hold me back. I'm so glad I can take care of you. Really." Xiang Caiping's face was pale. She was still a little conflicted. Su Qingsang held her hand tightly and said, Mom, I haven't been by your side for the past few decades. Don't stop me." Xiang Caiping didn't object, but there were obvious tears in her eyes. "Qingsang, Mom, don't talk. You've lost a lot of blood. Your body is weak now. You should take care." Xiang Caiping nodded hard. The simple movement made her back hurt again. Su Qingsang felt sorry for her and held her hand. "Mom, I'm begging you. Don't move. Lie down properly." Xiang Caiping finally stopped moving, but at that moment she saw Su Qinghui, who had been standing in the corner of the ward. With just one glance, her expression changed. "Why are you here?" Su Qingsang also saw Su Qinghui at that moment. Her expression was a little ugly. "Dad, can I ask you to leave?" Su Qinghui looked a little uncomfortable. He took a step forward but didn't get close. "Caiping, don't be like this. Get out. I don't want to see you." If she could move, Xiang Caiping would have chased after Su Qinghui herself. "Caiping, I just want to see you." You've seen me? You can leave." Xiang Caiping's attitude was too firm and cold. Su Qinghui stood there for a moment, not knowing whether to move forward or retreat. Su Qingsang turned around and took 2 steps forward. "Dad, I think it's better for you to leave." "Qingsang, you saw it? My mom doesn't want to see you. Moreover, she can't help but get excited when she sees you. If you really want her to recover faster, you should hurry up and leave." Su Qinghui didn't want to leave. He felt very guilty, and besides the guilt, he also blamed himself. Su Peijian's unintentional action had hurt Xiang Kaiping, which he didn't expect. He felt that he should apologize to Xiang Kaiping. Qingsang asked him to leave. Su Qingsang raised her eyebrows and said coldly, "Dad, you hurt her. My mom really doesn't want to see you." Su Qinghui sighed. He didn't want to stay. He thought for a moment and said, "Then Kaiping, I'll come to see you tomorrow." "No, you don't have to come again." Xiang Caiping's voice was very cold. "I'm afraid that I won't recover if I see you." Su Qinghui didn't know what to say. He wanted to take another look at Xiang Kaiping, but Su Qingsang blocked his view. In the end, he had no choice but to turn around and leave. After he left, the two of them breathed a sigh of relief, especially Su Qingsang. No matter what, Su Qinghui was her father. If he really insisted on staying, she might not be able to do anything about it. "Mom, are you hungry?" Su Qingsang sat down in front of the bed and looked at her with concern. "But you have to bear with it. You can't eat anything for now." It had been less than 24 hours since the surgery. She could only get in 4 for now. "It's okay. I'm not hungry." She had slept so well that she wouldn't be hungry. Xiang Kaiping reached out to hold Su Qingsang's hand. "I'm useless. I wanted to help you, but now not only can I not help you, but I'm also a burden to you." "Mom." Su Qingsang didn't like what she said. "If you say that again, I'll be angry." "Fine, I won't say it anymore." Xiang Kaiping looked around. "Where's Jinyao?" "He went to work." Su Qingsang was afraid that Xiang Kaiping would misunderstand, so she quickly explained, "He stayed here all day and night yesterday. When I was in Song City, he was the one running back and forth. He paid for the surgery." Chapter 395. Don't praise him. "I'm afraid he'll be too proud," Su Qingsang joked with Xiang Kaiping. "You're a good girl too." Xiang Kaiping smiled. Suddenly she let out a cry. "Mom, what's wrong? Where's my bag? There's something in it." "You mean this?" Su Qingsang went to get it first and raised the bag in her hand. Yes, this." Xiang Kaiping smiled. Open it. Open it." Su Qingsang had seen it, but she still let out a cry of surprise when she saw the box inside, as if it was the first time she opened it. "Do you like it?" Xiang Kaiping smiled. "I thought about how hard it is for you to work in a place like the hospital every day. I bought a jade Buddha for you to wear." "I didn't know." Su Qingsang already knew, but her eyes were still a little red. She took out the jade Buddha and looked at Xiang Kaiping. "Mom, seriously, why are you spending so much money? It's hundreds of thousands." "It's nothing. Won't my money be yours in the future?" Xiang Kaiping held her hand. "Put it on and show me." "Okay." Su Qingsang didn't refuse. It was a mother's wish and she couldn't refuse it. He wore the jade Buddha statue around his neck. The jade Buddha statue was green in color and had a warm texture when held in his hand. "Thank you, Mom. I like it very much." "I'm glad you like it." Xiang Kaiping looked in the bag. "There's a bracelet. It's a gift from the boss. See if you can wear it." "Mom, I can't wear a bracelet." Su Qingsang shook her head. "I need to have surgery. I can't wear a bracelet." "Then keep it. You can wear it in the future." "Thank you, Mom." Su Qingsang put the box away and put the bag aside. "Mom, get better soon. You can wear this bracelet when the time comes." Su Qingsang held Xiang Caiping's hand as she spoke. "Your wrist is very thin and your bones are small. It'll look good on you. I'm old. I don't need to think about it." Xiang Kaiping smiled. "I just want you to be well now. Nothing else matters." Looking at Su Qingsang, she thought of the hard work she had in the past few decades and sighed. "In fact, at my age, it's not a big deal to die like this. Now that I've acknowledged you, I have no regrets." "Really? Mom? You're talking nonsense again." Su Qingsang held her hand tightly and didn't want to listen to her anymore. "You can't say that you have no regrets. You haven't even seen the birth of your grandson, right? Take good care of yourself. I'm still waiting for you to take care of my child." Xiang Caiping's eyes widened. She seemed to be shocked by this suggestion. But soon she smiled. "All right. Okay. That was right. I still want to live a little longer. I still want to see your baby born. I still want to be a grandmother." "Yes." Su Qingsang nodded. She knew that Xiang Kaiping was determined to live on. In fact, many elderly people would feel depressed in their old age and feel that they were a burden to their children. Although the person didn't stay, Su Qingsang was quite satisfied with Hua Jinyao's speed. Su Qingsang really felt that she couldn't be happier to have a husband by her side who thought ahead of her in everything. She thought that when this busy period was over and Xiang Caiping's body was more or less recovered, they would have a child. She believed that Xiang Caiping wouldn't be the only one who would be very happy. Old Master Hua, who was far away in Rong City, would also be very happy, right? When Su Yusin returned home, he found that the atmosphere was a little strange. He had been at school 5 days a week and wasn't at home very often. Occasionally he contacted his parents either on the phone or through WeChat. He didn't even call them often. But if there was anything, someone at home would tell him. Entering the door, Li Qianxue didn't look very good. Not only was it not good, but it was also quite ugly. Su Qinghui didn't look very good either. He sat on the sofa opposite Li Qianxue with a coffee table between the two of them. Su Peijian sat on the big sofa in the middle. Her eyes were red as if she had been wronged. Sitting next to her, old Master Li also had a cold face at this time. Chapter 396. Grandfather. Dad. Mom. Sister. Su Yusin took off his coat and went forward to greet them. A servant came up to help him take down his coat and hang it up. Su Yusin stood in front of the coffee table and looked at the situation in front of him. What's wrong? What happened? Li Qianxue didn't speak, and neither did old Master Li. Su Qinghui frowned and didn't say a word. In the end, Su Yusin could only look at Su Peijian, hoping that she would give him an answer. Sister? Yusin, you came back at the right time. Su Peijian was about to cry. Look at Dad. He actually told me to go to America. I don't want to go. To America? Su Yusin glanced at Su Qinghui. Why are you going to the United States? Su Peijian stopped talking. Li Qianxue glared at Su Qinghui. The hatred in her heart was as deep as the ocean, but now her face was cold and filled with anger. Dad, I don't want to go to America. I've already finished my master's degree. Why should I continue to study? Old Master Li sat there without saying a word. Study? Su Yusin glanced at Su Peijian. You still want to study? Yes. That's what Dad said. Su Peijian was furious. He told me to study in the United States for a few more years before coming back. I said I don't want to go. Old Master Li patted Su Peijian's hand and looked at Su Qinghui. Do you want to exile Peijian now? Do you want to give her up? Su Qinghui didn't look happy either. Dad, what are you talking about? I asked Peijian to study because I wanted her to cultivate her character. Cultivate her character? Li Qianxue couldn't stand it anymore. Do you want your daughter to cultivate her character or do you want to exile her? You know it. I didn't mean that. Even if Su Qinghui had that intention, he wouldn't say it out loud. I'm sending her away now for her own good. Or should we wait for Hua Jinyao to deal with her? What right does Hua Jinyao have to punish her? Su Qinghui, you don't have to sound so noble. Your sweetheart is back and you can't wait to give her your whole heart. What's a daughter worth? Li Qianxue gritted her teeth. Her heart was filled with hatred. Su Qinghui didn't treat her well, but he had given her the cold shoulder for so many years. It was her own choice. But now, he couldn't even tolerate her daughter? She used to think that he treated Su Peijian well and thought that he still had a heart for this family. So it was because that woman did not return. Now that that woman was back, he only cared about Xiang Caiping. How could he care about any of them? She caused Kai. Su Qinghui paused. She caused a car accident. Do you think Hua Jinyao will let it go? Was she the one who caused it? That's what Luo Fu and Madame Song did. What does it have to do with her? If that Madame Luo and Madame Song hadn't wanted to help her vent her anger, if not for her instigation, Madame Luo and Madame Song wouldn't have done so. Why would they want to make things difficult for someone who has nothing to do with them? Li Qianxue stood up abruptly. What? Was she that precious? Couldn't he vent his anger on her? She slapped my daughter in the face. As a father, you don't know how to stand up for your daughter. Instead, you're bullying your daughter and thinking of sending her away? What kind of logic is that? Even if Su Peijian's words and actions were inappropriate, there were hints. But Madame Luo and Madame Song went there on their own. What did it have to do with Su Peijian? Su Qinghui didn't want to argue with Li Qianxue about this. I only know that she is an adult. She has to pay for her actions. Pay? What price? Was she the one who hit the person? Was she the one who did it? She didn't kill Boren. Boren died because of her. Why isn't she responsible? Su Qinghui used to like to see Li Qianxue pretend to be Su Peijian, but today he felt that he couldn't say anything. Su Qinghui, don't talk nonsense. It's obvious that you don't like us because that woman has come back. You don't need to say anything else. I won't allow you to send Peijin away. Li Qianxue, be reasonable. Su Qinghui. Who's being unreasonable? Enough. Old Master Li's head hurt after listening to them for a long time. He knocked the cane in his hand hard. Li Qianxue and Su Qinghui stopped talking. Old Master Li looked at Li Qianxue first. His eyes were filled with disapproval and blame. Qianxue, you're not a little girl anymore. You're not a little girl anymore. You should control your temper. Don't you know what you can say and what you can't say? Dad. Li Qianxue felt wronged, but she couldn't say a word. And you, Qinghui. Old Master Li looked at Su Qinghui. Qinghui. It's been so many years. I don't think the Li family has done anything wrong to you. Dad, I didn't mean that. Even if Su Qinghui dared to talk back to Li Qianxue, he still respected Old Master Li very much. After all, for so many years Old Master Li had been leading him in the business world, hand in hand. He was also the one who taught him many things. He could not love Li Qianxue, but he did respect Old Master Li from the bottom of his heart. I know that I forced you to marry Qianxue back then, and you have resentment in your heart. But Qinghui, it's been more than 20 years and Yusin is about to be 18. No matter how much resentment you have in your heart, seeing that Qianxue gave birth to 2 children for you and has been working for you for so many years without any complaints, your resentment should be gone, right? Su Qinghui didn't speak. He couldn't respond to this. Some hatred and resentment couldn't be eliminated in a short period of time. Old Master Li sighed. I'm old. I can't interfere in your affairs anymore. You said that you're afraid that Hu Jingyao will settle the score with Peijin. I'm willing to go and talk to him. As for Peijin. Looking at Su Peijin, Old Master Li said helplessly, there's no need for her to study. But it's fine for her to go to a short-term advanced course. Grandpa. Su Peijin bit her lip. She was actually quite dissatisfied with this arrangement. It's decided. You can all go. Old Master Li waved his hand. I said that I'm old and I just want to see a happy family. I can't bear to see Peijin leave for a few years. It's fine to go there for a few months. When he met Su Peijin's dissatisfied gaze, his voice became harsher. There is indeed something wrong with your personality. Too arrogant, too willful. It's good that your father wants you to go away for a while. Since Old Master Li had spoken, this matter could only be decided this way. No matter how dissatisfied Su Peijin was, she could only agree to this decision. However, she still couldn't accept it. She stood up and stomped upstairs. Chapter 397. After listening for a long time, Su Yusin finally got some idea of what was going on. Of course, he knew that his father had a sweetheart. But he didn't expect that sweetheart to come back. Old Master Li was tired at this point and didn't want to stay any longer. He stood up. Qinghui, a person's time in this life is actually very limited. I really hope that you know what you want and what's most important. Su Qinghui was silent. Of course, he knew that the most important thing in his life was revenge. Other than revenge, nothing else was important. Yes, that's right. He didn't regret it. Not at all. Li Qianxue looked in the direction of her daughter's departure and watched as Old Master Li returned to his room. She finally looked at Su Qinghui. Her eyes were a little cold. She didn't care that her father was still here. Her voice was full of exhaustion. Su Qinghui, if you feel that your resentment hasn't dissipated, you still want to vent your anger, then come at me. Peijin and Yusin are also your children. If you feel that you want to be with a woman now, you can mention divorce. Not only will I agree, but I can also guarantee that everything you have obtained with your ability will still be yours. But I don't want what happened today to happen again. You know I'm protective. I can tolerate anything else. But I won't watch you bully my children. After saying this, Li Qianxue didn't look at Su Qinghui. She got up and went upstairs to comfort Su Peijin. That. Su Qinghui didn't speak. He sat there without moving. After so many years, he realized that it was the first time he heard the word divorce from Li Qianxue's mouth. In the past, no matter what he said or did, Li Qianxue never said these 2 words. So as long as Xiang Kaiping came back, she was willing to divorce? Then what about the past 20 years? That. Su Yusin called again. Su Qinghui raised his head as if he had just noticed Su Yusin. You're back? Yes. He didn't say that he had come back long ago. Su Yusin thought about it and still wanted to ask more clearly. Dad, what happened to sister? What did she do? Don't you love her the most? Su Qinghui didn't speak and looked at Su Yusin. Only then did he realize that his son seemed to have grown a little taller in just half a month. This was his son, the son he had with Li Qianxue. Just like Su Qingsang, This child didn't receive all the love and care that Su Peijian did. However, this did not affect his excellence. He was number one in every subject. First in the class, first in the whole year. He also has a good personality. It was not like Su Peijian but more like Su Qingsang. Was this really a blood relationship? That. Su Yusin realized that Su Qinghui was distracted again, so he couldn't ask any more questions. He remembered that his grandfather had told him that he was going to look for Hua Jinyao later. Perhaps he should go with him tomorrow. Su Qingsang didn't know that the Su family was having a huge argument at home. Xiang Kaiping slept for the whole day and was much more energetic at night. Although he still couldn't get up, at least his face wasn't as pale as before. Su Qingsang realized that Hua Jinyao was really good at finding people after Ning Xiaomei stayed behind. Not only was she strong but she was also very chatty. She knew Lin City very well. She even knew some of the places that had been developed in the past. She only stayed to chat with Xiang Kaiping for a while, but Xiang Kaiping was very satisfied. When Hua Jinyao came to the ward after work, Su Qingsang gave him a sincere smile of gratitude. Jinyao, you're here. Xiang Kaiping looked at Hua Jinyao with satisfaction and heartache in her eyes. You're busy at work, so you don't have to come at night. Qingsang and Xiaoning are still here. Mom, I came to see you. Hua Jinyao stood by the bed. It's good that you're awake. If you didn't wake up, I was afraid that the ward would be drowned by some people's tears. Hua Jinyao, what are you talking about? Su Qingsang glared at him. I didn't cry. Did I mention names? Hua Jinyao raised his eyebrows and looked innocent. I didn't say it was you. Why are you in such a hurry to admit it? You? Su Qingsang turned to look at Xiang Kaiping. Mom, don't believe him. Xiang Kaiping smiled and held Su Qingsang's hand. I don't believe him. I believe you. Su Qingsang blinked at Hua Jinyao. See? I'm my mother's biological daughter. Mom, you have to do something about this. Hua Jinyao looked melancholy. Your daughter is looking down on me, her husband, more and more. She didn't care about you in the first place. Xiang Kaiping looked at Hua Jinyao's pale face and added, she cares about you. Su Qingsang blushed. She really didn't expect Xiang Kaiping to say that. However, Hua Jinyao smiled with satisfaction. He looked at Su Qingsang with doting eyes. The current situation made Xiang Kaiping want to live more and more. She wanted her body to recover as soon as possible so that she could move freely and take care of her daughter and grandchild. The atmosphere in the ward suddenly became livelier and happier because of Hua Jinyao's arrival. Hua Jinyao also breathed a sigh of relief. It was good that Xiang Kaiping was awake. After chatting with Xiang Kaiping for a while, Hua Jinyao left Xiaoning to take care of her and took Su Qingsang home to put away their luggage and clothes. Xiang Kaiping asked her to go home and rest. You stay up like this every night. Even if your body can take it, my heart will ache. You should go home and rest. Come back tomorrow morning. Su Qingsang couldn't argue with the two of them, so she went home. She woke up early the next morning, found a light porridge on the internet, and sent it to the hospital. Hua Jinyao sent Su Qingsang to the hospital first and then went to the company. If he wanted to go back to Rong City to develop, he would have to let others participate in many businesses in Lin City. He was actually very busy. He didn't expect to see someone waiting for him when he entered the company. Old Master Li. Hua Jinyao looked at Old Master Li, who was sitting on the sofa in his office. Not only him but Su Yusin was also there. Su Yusin was clever. When he saw him, he stood up and called him brother-in-law. Hua Jinyao responded and looked at Yang Wenchang behind him. Inform them that the meeting will be postponed for half an hour. Yes. The door closed. Hua Jinyao walked to the other side of the sofa and sat down. Old Master Li, you could have called me if you needed anything. Why did you come here yourself? He glanced at Su Yusin. Yusin too. Your grandfather is old. Why don't you persuade him? It's not worth it. Old Master Li looked at the polite expression on his face. I am old, but my old arms and legs can still move. That's true. Old Master Li is old but strong. Who would dare to say that you are old? Chapter 398. Hua Jinyao pursed his lips into a straight line. He was not in a hurry to respond to the other party's words. Old Master, you're being too modest. I already said if you need anything just let me know. I don't deserve the word beg. Old Master Li looked at Hua Jinyao with his shrewd eyes. Jinyao, you are my grandson-in-law. If you say so, I'll take it seriously. Don't. Hua Jinyao raised his hand. I'm not that lucky to be your grandson-in-law. These words were interesting. That meant that she didn't acknowledge Su Qingsang as Old Master Li's granddaughter. Old Master Li didn't look too good. Not only him but Su Yusin also frowned. Jinyao, it's not up to you to decide. Old Master Li chuckled. No matter what, Qingsang's surname is Su. That's right. Her surname is Su, not Li. Jinyao's expression was calm, but it was enough to make people angry. Old Master Li didn't know what to say. Yes, her surname was Su. Of course he's a member of the Su family. And then? Jinyao looked up, his deep eyes sharp. The sharp side of him that he had never shown in front of Su Qingsang was now showing to outsiders. What do you want to say? Just say it. You already said that we are a family, so don't stand on ceremony. Old Master Li did not relax because of Jinyao's words. He could tell that Jinyao was not easy to deal with. It's nothing. Just a small matter. Old Master Li thought of Su Peijian and felt a little upset. Su Peijian wasn't a bad child, but she was too arrogant. She could only blame herself for spoiling her too much. As a result, Su Peijian had developed such a condescending personality. He was responsible. However, he didn't want Su Peijian to be severely punished. Jinyao. We all know about Qingsang's mother's car accident a few days ago. Jinyao didn't speak. He had guessed Old Master Li's intention when he came today. Speaking of which, it is indeed our fault for not teaching our daughter well. We are also responsible. Old Master Li reflected on his actions and blamed himself. Seeing that Jinyao remained unmoved, he sighed in his heart. No wonder Chanyu had been developing better and better these years. How many young people could be like Jinyao? Jinyao, no matter what, we're all family. Since Qingsang's mother is fine, why don't we just forget about it? Forget it? Jinyao seemed to have heard a joke. He tilted his head and looked at Old Master Li playfully. Old Master, I've always respected you. But there are some things I'm afraid I can't agree to. Jinyao, Qinghui has already taught Peijian a lesson about this. He also said that he would send Peijian to the United States so that she could calm down abroad. To the United States? Jinyao smiled. That's a vacation, right? I don't think sending her away is a punishment. Jinyao. Old Master Li couldn't take it anymore. Peijian's father wants her to study abroad for a period of time. Do you still think it's a vacation? Then she's avoiding responsibility. Jinyao nodded as if he suddenly understood. Yes. It turns out that in this day and age, people who do something wrong are punished as long as they are sent abroad. I've really learned something new. These words were really too unpleasant to hear. Old Master Li couldn't bear it anymore. Then what do you want? Speaking of this, Peijian is responsible for this, but she didn't do anything. She didn't want this to happen. She didn't do anything? Then I want to ask, why is instigating murder punishable? Jinyao, you're not helping to solve the problem at all. Because you don't have the attitude to solve the problem. Jinyao's expression turned cold. He stared at Old Master Li. She should be punished for doing something wrong. What makes you think that Su Peijian can stay out of this? Brother-in-law. My sister didn't. Shut up. Jinyao glared at him. Su Yusin, don't forget that Su Qingsang is also your sister. Su Yusin didn't say anything. He lowered his head and looked at his toes. He looked a little depressed. I know, but my sister, Su Peijian, really knows that she was wrong. She knows that she was wrong? Go to prison and admit your mistake. Jinyao, don't go too far. Old Master Li couldn't bear to listen anymore. This was an accident. Peijian didn't do this. She also blames herself for this result and regrets it. Can't you? I can't. Jinyao's expression was firm and his eyes were cold. Just like your bottom line is your family, my bottom line is also my family. Although Xiang Kaiping was not Jinyao's direct family member, she was now Jinyao's mother-in-law, so she was his family. Su Peijian dared to offend Xiang Kaiping, so she had to pay the price. The atmosphere was tense for a moment. Old Master Li took a few deep breaths to calm himself down. It was really difficult to stay calm like this. Jinyao, then what do you want? Jinyao didn't speak. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the two people in front of him. Old Master Li, you may not know one thing. What? This is not the first time Su Peijian has gotten into trouble. What? Not only Old Master Li but even Su Yusin's eyes widened. Jinyao thought for a moment and told them about the husband of the pregnant woman who jumped off the building last time. He didn't add fuel to the fire and there was no need. After a few words he looked at Old Master Li. You know now, right? This is not the first time Su Peijian has targeted Qingsang, nor did she do anything bad. In fact, I gave her a chance. I also told Dad to keep an eye on Su Peijian. What did Dad say to me at that time? He said that he promised that nothing like this would happen again. However, it seems that not long after he promised, something like this happened again. Do you think I will let it go just like that? Old Master Li and Su Yusin didn't know about this. It was the first time they heard about it today. They looked at each other and stared at Hu Jinyao with their eyes wide open. They almost couldn't believe that Su Peijian was like this. This may be a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Hu Jinyao nodded. I'm sorry. I still have evidence that she instigated Lu Xiangyu's husband to hit Qing Sang last time. Hu Jinyao never fought a battle he was not confident of winning. Since he had made up his mind, he naturally had to make a fatal move. Old Master Li was speechless. He really didn't expect Su Peijian to make a mistake for the second time. After all, he had watched Su Peijian grow up. Chapter 399. Brother-in-law, what do you want now? Compared with old Master Li's shock, Su Yusin was much calmer. Do you want my sister to apologize to Sister Qingsang's mother? Su Peijian wouldn't be able to take it if Su Peijian lost face like this. Hu Jinyao looked at Su Yusin with admiration. Su Yusin was so calm at such a young age. He would be a great man in the future. It was a pity that such a good boy was Su Peijian's younger brother. What a waste. Su Peijian already apologized last time, but it didn't work. So I don't need her to apologize. Hu Jinyao looked at old Master Li and Su Yusin's faces and added, I want her to go to jail. Hu Jinyao. Old Master Li's voice was trembling. She will turn herself in and say that she encouraged Lu Xiangyu's husband to hurt Qing Sang. I've asked. This kind of crime won't last long. She'll be out in about 3 months. Hu Jinyao. Old Master Li's face turned green. Li Yongfeng's granddaughter was going to jail? Brother-in-law? Su Yusin also felt that the punishment was too much. Hu Jinyao said in a tone that was not negotiable, 3 months is my bottom line. As long as Su Peijian turns herself in, I promise that I won't do anything but lock her up for 3 months. He didn't finish his words, but the meaning was clear. If Su Peijian didn't turn herself in and stay in jail for 3 months, then Hu Jinyao would do it himself. Old Master Li and Su Yusin didn't expect Hu Jinyao to be so cruel. They looked at each other and wanted to say something, but they knew it was useless to say anything at this time. Hu Jinyao didn't stand on ceremony. After saying what he wanted, he picked up the documents and went to the meeting. Before he left, he didn't forget to annoy them. Old Master Li, what about me? My patience is limited. So Su Peijian had better turn herself in as soon as possible. Otherwise, I can't guarantee how long she will be locked up if I come forward to sue her. Old Master Li's face turned from green to white and then from white to green. He looked lethargic with an emaciated face. Su Yusin looked at Hu Jinyao's closed office door, thought for a moment and helped Old Master Li up. Shall we go? Leave? Old Master Li didn't expect to be so embarrassed. How? Are you going to let your sister go to jail? But it's useless even if you beg him now. Although Su Yusin hadn't interacted much with Hu Jinyao, he could tell that Hu Jinyao wasn't someone who would easily change his mind. Are you going to watch your sister go to jail? If that really happened, the Li family and the Su family would become the laughingstock of Lin City. Su Yusin glanced at Old Master Li. Grandpa, why are you so obsessed? As you can see by now, it's useless to go to Hu Jinyao. Meeting Old Master Li's puzzled gaze, Su Yusin added, if you really don't want sister to go to jail, I'm afraid you'll have to look for Sister Qing Sang. Old Master Li was stunned for a moment. He looked at Su Yusin and suddenly understood. Su Qing Sang brought the porridge to Xiang Kaiping. In fact, she couldn't drink much at the moment. After drinking half a bowl, he said he couldn't drink any more. Xiao Ning cleverly cleaned up the bowl, and Su Qing Sang chatted with Xiang Kaiping. Xiang Kaiping had recovered quite well that day. Seeing that Su Qing Sang had been with her the whole time and had been busy, she felt really bad. Why did she feel that she hadn't helped her daughter much since she adopted her? Instead, it was her daughter who had been worrying about her? Qing Sang, talk to the leaders of your institute. You can go to work tomorrow. Mom, don't you like me to accompany you? I like it, but... Xiang Caiping's face was pale. But it's too much of a waste of your time. It's okay, Mom. I've already told the leader. I'll accompany you for the next few days. We'll talk about going to work in a few days. Although the critical period had passed, Xiang Kaiping was still very weak. Su Qing Sang wanted to stay with her for a few more days. Okay then. Su Qing Sang wanted to say something else, but her phone suddenly rang. Su Qingsang didn't expect the person to be Su Yusin. Not only Su Yusin but Old Master Li was also there. When she saw Su Yusin in the corridor outside the hospital, she couldn't hide the surprise on her face. Yusin? She saw Su Yusin first, then Old Master Li. Old Master Li. Old Master Li looked at Su Qingsang. No matter how biased he had to admit that Su Qingsang was much more sensible than Su Peijian. Su Peijian didn't seem like an older sister, but more like a younger sister. Yusin, why are you here? Su Qingsang thought about the gift on the dressing table at home. She hadn't given Su Yusin the gift on the dressing table. Sister, this is a gift for Auntie. Su Yusin was carrying some high-end nutrition and tonics in his hand. They didn't look cheap. Su Qingsang wasn't in a hurry to take them. Instead, she looked at Old Master Li. Sister, you know that it's not convenient for us to go in. Why don't you bring them in? Thank you. Su Qingsang didn't refuse the gift. She took the gift box from the man's hand. Thank you. She didn't rush to go in. Instead, she looked at Su Yusin and said, You still have something to talk to me about, right? Although she didn't know what it was, she could more or less guess. Yes. But you should bring the things in first. We'll talk when you come out later. Su Yusin didn't think too much about it. He just wanted to give a generous gift. He didn't expect to buy so much. Su Qingsang glanced at him and didn't ask any more questions. She carried the things into the door. She told Xiaoning to take good care of Xiang Kaiping before coming out again. What's the matter? Say it. Sister. Su Yusin looked around. This was really not a good place to chat. Let's find a place. Su Qingsang nodded and took Su Yusin to the lawn outside the hospital. There were 2 benches there. Old Master Li, please sit. Su Qingsang was still respectful to Old Master Li. Old Master Li felt a little embarrassed. He had just begged Hu Jinyao today, and now he came to beg Su Qingsang. He didn't know if Su Qingsang would agree, or if she would be on Hu Jinyao's side. Sister. I'll tell you the truth. Su Yusin told her about their visit to Hu Jinyao today. He skipped the part about Lu Xiangyu's husband, thinking that Su Qingsang knew about it. He directly said that Hu Jinyao wanted to put Su Peijian in jail. Su Qingsang's eyes widened. Old Master Li and Su Yusin saw her shocked expression. Both of them knew that Su Qingsang didn't know about it at all. It was good that she didn't know. Old Master Li breathed a sigh of relief. He glanced at Su Yusin. Chapter 400. The lawn of the hospital was very quiet. Su Yusin's voice was very soft, but it was very clear. Sister. We all know that Sister Peijian has gone too far this time. Daddy is going to send her away now. Brother-in-law is going to put her in jail again. Sis, she has already been punished and knows that she was wrong. Can we just let it go? Sister. You're also a member of the Su family. We're bound together for good or bad. If Sister Peijian really goes to jail, the reputation of the Su family will be ruined. We will become the joke of Lin City. Sister. I promise you this is the last time. If Sister Peijian does anything to hurt you or Auntie again, I won't forgive her no matter what you say. Sister, let's just forget about this, okay? Su Qingsang listened to Su Yusin's words, and the shock in her eyes slowly faded. She stood there for a long time without saying a word. Half an hour later, Su Qingsang sent Su Yusin and Old Master Li off and returned to the ward. When it was almost time, Hu Jinyao asked someone to bring lunch. Su Qingsang had lost her appetite because of Su Yusin and Old Master Li. But he forced himself to eat some. Xiang Kaiping immediately noticed that Su Qingsang didn't look too good. Qingsang, are you tired from taking care of me? Take a break if you're too tired. Mom, what are you talking about? I'm not tired. Su Qingsang thought about Old Master Li's arrival and Su Yusin's words. Actually, she didn't want to get involved in this matter. Su Peijian hurting Xiang Kaiping made her even angrier than hurting herself. She really wanted to teach Su Peijian a lesson. So what if she went to jail? It was just a few months. But, what's that? Is it because you don't come to work and the leader is unhappy? Mom. Su Qingsang thought for a moment and decided to tell Xiang Kaiping the truth. She gestured for Xiaoning to go out for a while and sat down in front of the bed again. Mom, there's something I didn't want to tell you. But I think I should ask your opinion. Su Qingsang told him about Su Yusin and Old Master Li's visit. He also told them about Hu Jinyao's plan to punish Su Peijian. In fact, this was quite a severe punishment for Su Peijian. She was such a prideful person and she was also a proud daughter of heaven. How could she bear to be locked up for a few months like this? Although Su Qingsang didn't sympathize with her, She felt that this was indeed a punishment. That's how it is. I didn't agree, nor did I agree. I don't think I have a say in this matter. Xiang Kaiping didn't say anything. She really didn't like Su Peixian. Not only did he not like it, he hated it. Very annoying. She also wanted to teach Su Peixian a lesson, but going to jail? Is this Jinyao's idea? Yes. Su Qingsang nodded. What Jinyao has to put her in jail. That's why Su Yusin came to me. Are you close to Su Yusin? Yes. He's not like Su Peixian. He's a nice guy. Su Qingsang thought for a moment, then added, in fact, old Master Li is a nice guy too. Although he doesn't value me, he hasn't made things difficult for me over the years. I have done all the necessary etiquette. Xiang Kaiping didn't say anything. She could tell that Su Qingsang didn't have feelings for Su Peixian, but she was willing to care about Su Yusin and old Master Li. Speaking of which, my fall has nothing to do with her. If I didn't fall over there, I wouldn't have been hit by the car. Mom. Su Qingsang held her hand. You don't have to worry about me. You just have to worry about yourself. If you feel that you have to vent your anger, then let Su Peixian go to jail. It doesn't matter. Forget it. Xiang Kaiping was still in a bad mood, but she didn't continue to dwell on this matter. I'm not an unforgiving person. Since Su Qinghui sent her abroad, then send her away. As for going to jail, forget it. Mom, you've been wronged. I'm fine. It's been so many years. What haven't I suffered? I just feel sorry for you. Mom? Su Qingsang didn't like the Su family and she didn't like the Li family. If possible, it would be best if they didn't interact. But the current situation made it impossible for them to not interact. So, she really couldn't talk about such a thing. At night, Su Qingsang left Xiaoning in the hospital to take care of Xiang Kaiping. She went home with Hua Jinyao and told him about old Master Li's visit. You're soft-hearted? A little. Su Qingsang nodded. I don't have a deep grudge against Su Peixian. It's just a small conflict. I think it's too heavy a punishment for her to go to jail. Hua Jinyao looked at the hesitation on her face, picked her up and put her on his lap. You're too soft-hearted. According to him, he wanted to teach Su Peixian a lesson. He wanted to let her know next time that she had to pay the price for doing whatever she wanted. However, Su Qingsang was soft-hearted and so was Xiang Kaiping. Not really. In fact, the Su family has neglected and ignored me for so many years. But in other aspects they have not treated me badly. At the very least, there aren't many illegitimate daughters in Shaolin City who are raised in this family. At least she grew up safely. At least she received higher education. At least she was still here. Take her home? That might not be for her own good. Hua Jinyao was quite mean. Why don't you say that your father did it to anger Li Qianxue? Su Qingsang glanced at him. Do you have to be so direct? I've always been direct. As Hua Jinyao spoke, she turned around to face him. Just like how I'm direct to you now. The hint in his words was too obvious. Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed. Stop it. I haven't showered yet. That's good. Let's shower together. As Hua Jinyao spoke, he picked her up. He took her in the direction of the bathroom. Su Qingsang didn't want to fall, so she could only put her arms around his neck. Hua Jinyao, ha. Don't worry, I'll wash you very clean. Who told him that? Su Qingsang glared at him. She wanted to say that they should just have a child without protection. But she didn't say that in the end. She should wait a little longer. Wait for her heart to calm down a little more. Wait for her to be more certain. Don't worry. I know you're very tired. Just once. The hint in Hua Jinyao's words was too strong. Su Qingsang turned her face away, didn't want to listen, and finally buried her face in his chest. Hua Jinyao. Yes. It's okay. It was okay even if it was more than once. She was actually willing. Hua Jinyao understood. His eyes became very eager for a moment, and he strode into the bathroom with her in his arms. Su Qingsang took care of Xiang Kaiping for a few days. After her body recovered a little and her spirit was much better, she finally returned to the department to work. On the first day of work, 2 people who were seriously injured in a car accident came, and one of them was a pregnant woman. She was 8.5 months pregnant, and the situation was very dangerous. Su Qingsang prepared for the surgery with Chief Qin. Chapter 401. The pregnant woman is hemorrhaging. She needs type O blood. I need type O blood. After the doctor finished speaking to his assistant, one of the nurses went to get the O blood. Su Qingsang couldn't care less about anything else. She couldn't afford to be distracted for even a second on the operating table. Not only did the pregnant woman hurt her stomach, but her chest was also injured. The atmosphere in the operating theater was very tense. The surgeon was performing a thoracotomy for the pregnant woman, while the obstetrician was performing a cesarean section for the pregnant woman. The two surgeries were carried out at the same time, but because they had cooperated many times, they were orderly. Su Qingsang and Director Chen had worked together many times and had a tacit understanding. More than an hour later, the cesarean section was over. Mother and daughter were safe. At the same time, the thoracic surgery was also over. The pregnant woman was pushed to the intensive care unit, and the newborn was sent to the infant observation room. Su Qingsang was in charge of writing the surgical records. Huang Jie, the nurse, still had some lingering fears. It was really dangerous. When the pregnant woman went into shock just now, I thought we couldn't save her. Isn't that so? Another nurse, Cheng Xiu, said, there was so much blood and the blood transfusion cost 1,000 cc. It's really a miracle that he could be saved. Yes, such a large amount of blood loss. Su Qingsang glanced at them. Gossiping? Huang Jie made a zipping motion with her mouth, then turned around and left quickly. Su Qingsang glanced at the medical record and continued to write the rest of the surgical records. Not long after, the newborn's physical examination was sent over. Su Qingsang glanced at them. After confirming that there were no problems, she backed up all the records and saved them. After that, Su Qingsang went to keep Xiang Kaiping company. Are you exhausted? Xiang Caiping's waist injury hadn't healed yet, so she couldn't move for the time being. However, the bed could already be shaken up, and with the help of the caregiver, she could eat by herself in a half-sitting position. I'm not tired. Su Qingsang looked at Xiang Kaiping and opened the lunchbox. Hua Jinyao had asked Yang Wenchang to go to Chaoan Courtyard to bring it over. It had been boiled until it was very fragrant. It was especially suitable for patients. Xiaoning was very perceptive. She took the bowl and chopsticks and set them aside. If you have to work, don't come over. Xiang Kaiping felt a little uncomfortable watching her daughter take care of her. Mom, look at you. I have to eat at work too. Eat more. Look at you. You've lost weight. Nonsense. Su Qingsang's eyes widened. Do you see how thin I am? During this period of time, all the nourishing soup that you couldn't eat went into my stomach. I basically gained weight. It's good to be fatter. Xiang Kaiping looked at her daughter and felt that she was too skinny. It's better for girls to be chubbier. No way. Su Qingsang was quite satisfied with her current figure. If I get any fatter, Hua Jinyao might not want me anymore. I heard it. Don't accuse me wrongly. Even if you were twice as fat, I don't dare to abandon you. Hearing Hua Jinyao's clear male voice, Su Qingsang stood up abruptly and turned around. Why are you here? I have an appointment with a client who is nearby. I'll come over once I'm done. Hua Jinyao said it casually, but in fact he knew that Su Qingsang was going back to work today, so he wanted to come and see her. Have you eaten? If not, let's eat together. Okay. Hua Jinyao stepped forward and looked at the dishes in front of him. Not only did he consider Xiang Caiping's mood, but he also considered Su Qingsang's taste. Not bad. Did Wenchang bring the food here? Yang Wenchang wasn't supposed to bring food, but Hua Jinyao was a little worried about letting someone else do it. Yes. Su Qingsang nodded. You're a good assistant. Hua Jinyao glanced at her. If you know how much his annual salary is, you'll think he's a good assistant. How much? Su Qingsang asked casually. Hua Jinyao said a number. Su Qingsang's eyes widened. That much? Yes. Wenchang is good at everything. He could handle a lot of things very well. He was worth the salary. Such a high salary? Su Qingsang said casually. I really have no future as a doctor. I might as well be your assistant. Hua Jinyao smiled. He didn't care that there were other people in the ward and rubbed the top of her head. How can I bear to let you suffer like that? You should just focus on being Mrs. Hua. Mr. and Mrs. Hua have such a good relationship. Xiaoning couldn't help but interrupt. Xiang Kaiping smiled. It's good that they have a good relationship. I'm still waiting to have a grandchild. Su Qingsang felt a little uncomfortable. She glanced at Hua Jinyao, afraid that he would give her away. Definitely. Hua Jinyao put his arm around Su Qingsang's shoulder as if nothing had happened. It will happen sooner or later. Mom, don't worry. Qingsang and I will definitely have 2 children in our lifetime. When we have a pair of twins, you'll be too busy every day. That's good. I'll take it seriously. Xiang Kaiping was amused. If you don't have twins, you'll have to compensate me. What are you talking about? Su Qingsang couldn't listen to it anymore. She couldn't decide how many children they had. What do you want if we only have one? Nothing. Hu Jinyao put his arm around her waist and said, as long as you gave birth to him. As long as it's your child, not to mention one. Even if you give birth to a ball, I'll hold it in my hand and love it dearly. Screw you. You're the one who gives birth to a ball. Su Qingsang scolded him, only to realize that she was scolding herself. She turned her face away and ignored this guy. Xiang Kaiping and Xiaoning laughed so hard that their stomachs hurt. Especially Xiang Kaiping. I say, Jinyao. My wound hasn't healed yet. You guys are teasing me like this. My wound is going to split open. Mom, are you okay? Su Qingsang suddenly became nervous. Xiang Kaiping waved her hand. I'm fine. I just laughed a little too hard. Su Qingsang glared at Hu Jinyao again. It was all his fault. Hu Jinyao looked innocent and raised his hands in surrender. It's all my fault, okay? My dear wife? Su Qingsang used the excuse of scooping rice to get up and ignored him. Hu Jinyao took a step forward and looked at Xiang Kaiping. Mother, look, Qingsang is angry again. Hurry up and talk to her. I won't. Xiang Kaiping deliberately put on a cold face. If you're wrong, you'll be punished. I won't help you persuade her. Then tell me how to punish her, mother? Hu Jinyao was quite casual. Xiang Kaiping looked at the food in front of her. It was definitely more than enough for 4 people. Then I'll punish you to finish all the food. Okay. Hu Jinyao made a gesture. Yes, mother. Xiang Kaiping couldn't help but be amused by him again. For a moment, the atmosphere in the ward was extremely happy. Su Qingsang looked at Hu Jinyao. She felt that her heart was beating uncontrollably. Chapter 402. When her heart beat, she felt every cell and every drop of blood in her body rising and falling for this man named Hu Jinyao. She found that she liked Hu Jinyao more and more. She found that she was falling in love with Hu Jinyao. How could there be such a good man? It wasn't because of his looks or his family background. It was because of his kindness. He protected her and doted on her, including her family. He took good care of Xiang Caiping's 3 meals. For each meal, he asked the nutritionist and the doctor what dishes and soups were suitable for the patient. Also, Xiang Caiping's hospitalization was very boring. After all, she was lying in bed and couldn't do anything else. However, Hu Jinyao came to see her whenever he had time. Not only did he visit her, but he also tried his best to make Xiang Kaiping happy. Because of them, Xiang Kaiping didn't feel uncomfortable at all in the hospital. Instead, she was in a good mood. And he did all this because Xiang Kaiping was his mother. That was why he loved her and even took care of her mother so well. More importantly, Hu Jinyao had done everything because he wanted to, and he had done it. What's wrong? Is the soup not good? Hu Jinyao saw Su Qingsang holding a bowl of soup without drinking and looked at her with some confusion. It's okay. It's delicious, but it's a little hot. Is it hot? It had been so long since she packed it from Chaowen Courtyard. It shouldn't be hot anymore, right? It's not hot now. Su Qingsang smiled. Let's eat. After eating, Xiaoning went to clean up. Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao talked to Xiang Kaiping for a while. Xiang Kaiping was sleepy and wanted to sleep. After she fell asleep, Su Qingsang pulled Hu Jinyao up and led him outside. Are you going back to the company now? Yes. Hu Jinyao nodded. I have 2 meetings in the afternoon. Su Qingsang didn't ask any more. She didn't know much about business anyway. However, she said, I see that you haven't had a good rest these days. Why don't you sleep at home in 2 days on the weekend? Hu Jinyao stopped, leaned over, and glanced at her. Do you feel sorry for me? Su Qingsang's face was a little hot. She looked away. Who feels sorry for you? I feel sorry for myself. You come here every day. I'm annoyed. Annoy me? I wonder whose eyes lit up when they saw me? You're mistaken. Su Qingsang refused to admit it. My eyes light up when I see who's coming. Including Su Qinghui? He had heard that Su Qinghui had come twice, but had been turned away by Su Qingsang. Xiang Kaiping was nowhere to be seen. Hearing that name, Su Qingsang's expression changed. Yes, including him. I have to be extra careful when I see him. I don't want him to have a chance to see my mother. I find that you hate him now. I can't say that. My mother just doesn't want to see him. No matter how bad Su Qinghui was, he was still her father. She still had basic respect for him. Hu Jinyao didn't say anything. He looked at Su Qingsang and thought of something else. Grandpa called me. Old Master Hua? He asked me to take you back to Rong City for the new year. Hua Jinyao looked at Su Qingsang and said, "He just said so and I told him. I said that you can't leave Lin City now. I'm afraid it's not convenient for you to go back for the new year." Su Qingsang pursed her lips into a straight line and looked at Hua Jinyao. She couldn't be as calm as he was. "Hua Jinyao, I'm afraid Grandpa is unhappy." "Why would he be?" Old Master Hua was the most open-minded. "He knows about your mother's car accident and wants you to take good care of her. Don't think about anything else." "Okay." Su Qingsang had dealt with Old Master Hua before and knew that he was the kindest old man. "But your parents must be unhappy, right?" "You don't have to worry about my parents." Hua Jinyao looked at her. He didn't want to lie to her. "My parents are unhappy, but it has nothing to do with us. Just ignore them. But I might have to go back to Rong City in a couple of days." It was close to the end of the year. In fact, he had a lot of things to do in Rong City. If it weren't for Xiang Caiping's accident, he would have flown there long ago. "Will you be gone for long?" Su Qingsang knew that he wouldn't come back to Lin City so soon. "There are a lot of things to do. When I'm done it might be the new year. I'll definitely have to spend time with Grandpa." Su Qingsang fell silent. They had just been married for a year, but they couldn't spend the new year together. "Why don't I ask the doctor if your mother can move now?" "Don't ask." Su Qingsang was a doctor herself. "My mother's current condition is not suitable for flying at all. Even if we fly there, we'll have to change hospitals and find new doctors. She'll have to adapt again. Although it's not troublesome for you to deal with these things, I think it's better not to." Hua Jinyao looked at her troubled face and couldn't help but laugh. "Then stay. I'll try to come back on New Year's Day. I'll spend the new year with you." "Don't." Su Qingsang really didn't want to do that. "Actually, I was assigned to work last year and spent the new year in the hospital. It's okay." She said it calmly, but Hua Jinyao felt a little sorry for her. He thought about the past years. Even if she didn't spend the new year in the hospital, she must have had a hard time in a place like the Su family. He had decided to solve this problem as soon as possible. Then he would come back to spend the new year with Su Qingsang. "We'll talk about it when the time comes." There were still more than 10 days before the new year. Maybe Xiang Caiping could be discharged by then? Okay. After sending Hua Jinyao off, Su Qingsang went back to the ward to check on Xiang Caiping and found that she was still sleeping. She went downstairs to her own department. She didn't expect to see a few people gathered in the corridor outside the maternity ward as soon as she went downstairs. One of the men looked to be in his 30s. He was tall and thin. At that moment he was holding Huang Jie's hand and wouldn't let go. "What are you doing?" Su Qingsang quickly stepped forward and stood in front of Huang Jie. She asked the man to let go of his hand. "This is a hospital. Is it a place for you to make trouble?" "Let go." "No. If you don't compensate me for my child today, I won't. I won't King let go." "Compensate for what child?" "What child?" Su Qingsang turned to look at Huang Jie. Her hand was being held by the man. Her face was distorted by the pain. "Dr. Su, you're here at the right time. Explain to this family member." "Explain what?" "He's the husband of the pregnant woman who was sent here in the car accident this morning. He just looked at the test results and insisted that we carried his child." "What's going on? Explain it clearly." Chapter 403. The man grabbed Huang Jie's hand and refused to let go. "Tell me what you're talking about. Tell me clearly. My wife is type O blood. I'm type AB blood. Whose is this type A child's? Whose is it?" The man was very angry and several family members behind him also spoke up. "Your hospital is too unreasonable. The child was switched at birth?" "Yes." "Where's the child? Where is it?" No wonder people say that doctors nowadays are becoming more and more immoral. It's really immoral. Isn't it immoral? They don't even know who this child belongs to? Why does he have to stay in the observation room? Is there something wrong with it? I think this hospital deliberately threw this kind of problematic child to us, and then gave our healthy child to someone else? But that's it. It's too easy for the doctors and nurses in the hospital to steal the child. The group of people spoke one after another, making Su Qingsang's head hurt. "Shut up. Stop arguing." Su Qingsang glared at the group of people in front of her, took 2 steps forward and forcefully pushed the man's hand away. She pulled Huang Jie behind her. "Have you guys had enough? If you have, can you be quiet for a while and listen to me? What do you want to say? What do you have to say?" The man looked angry. "Where is our child? Tell me." Sir, you just said that your wife is type O blood and you are type AB blood. Now your child is type A. Is that right? When Su Qingsang said this, a very vague thought flashed through her mind. But she didn't have time to think about the current situation. Yes. The tall, thin man was still angry when he said this. He glared at Su Qingsang and said, "Can you tell me now? Hand over my child." Sir, calm down. No one stole your child. Your child is still fine. Su Qingsang took out her phone as she spoke. Let me tell you why your child is type A, Wang Yao said. Su Qingsang's fingers moved quickly. She opened the search page and faced the tall, thin man. Look carefully. Type O blood is a recessive blood type. When it combined with type AB blood, the child born would not be type AB blood. It couldn't be type O either. They could only be type A or type B. Therefore, your son's blood type A is not a problem at all. Nonsense. The lanky man did not believe him. How could there be such a thing? I've only heard of people who take their blood type after their father or mother. I've never heard of someone with a different blood type. What do you mean by following others? That was up to you. Because type O was a recessive blood type. After the two of you get together, your AB blood type can only be passed on to your child as A or B. As for what you said about blood type coming from your parents, V had published that Mo One-Wei had type B blood, but she might give birth to type O blood. Is it because the child is type O that it's not your child? The tall and slender man frowned. Su Qingsang showed him the screen of her phone. Sir, you can find out about this kind of thing if you look it up on the internet. There's no way we can fake it. If you really don't believe me, you can do a paternity test. Let's see if we took your son from your wife's womb. Su Qingsang's words made Huang Jie glance at her. She thought that Dr. Su was really smart. Even if the child wasn't the man's, it must at least be his wife's. The tall and slender man finished reading the genetic chart. He still had a look of disbelief on his face. How could there be such a thing? Didn't they say that blood type comes from the parents? It's true that blood type comes from the parents. But blood type can also be changed during heredity. You can also see if a person with type A blood type and a person with type B. The children born could be A, B, O or AB of any of these. Because heredity is a very complicated system, you can't just rely on a blood type to say that your child isn't yours. The tall, skinny man finally stopped after hearing Su Qingsang's words. Doctor, I'm sorry. I don't read much. I didn't know about this. Sir, you're welcome. It has nothing to do with how much you read. After all, most people don't pay attention to their own blood type. Yes. I'm not in a hurry. The tall and slender man's smile was a little awkward. Then is my child okay? Why do you think he was sent to the observation room? Your wife had a lot of bleeding when she had a car accident. Although the child wasn't obviously affected, we can observe him. It's also a safeguard for him. You can also rest assured. Thank you, doctor. Thank you, doctor. The tall and slender man also calmed down. After thanking Huang Jie and apologizing again, he went to see the child. As he walked, he said that the hospital was really good and that the service was so good. Huang Jie's eyes widened. Dr. Su, look at these people. All right. Sometimes the patient's family is a little anxious. Let's understand. Su Qingsang patted her on the shoulder. All right, are you okay? I saw him holding your hand just now. Are you hurt? I'm fine. Fortunately, you came in time. You could explain if I didn't come. That's different. We're nurses. You're a doctor. There was a difference between what a doctor said and what a nurse said. Su Qingsang smiled. All right. Go back to your work. I'll go see the pregnant woman later. Okay. The group of people dispersed. Su Qingsang was about to put her phone back into her pocket when her eyes fell on the screen. Suddenly she froze. She suddenly stood in the corridor and didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the hereditary pattern chart on the screen. She felt as if her heart was being squeezed by a hand. When type O and AB people combined, they would give birth to type A or B blood. But it could never be type AB blood. For example, a person with type AB blood could not give birth to a child with type O blood. A person with type O blood could not give birth to a child with type AB blood. Xiang Kaiping was type O blood and she was type AB blood. What did this mean? She was not Xiang Caiping's daughter at all. Su Qingsang stood there without moving. Her eyes were fixed on the phone screen as if she was staring at it to find an answer. There were people passing by. Some people even called her name and greeted her, but Su Qingsang didn't hear them. She just stared at the words type O blood. The phone screen suddenly jumped. Su Qingsang was stunned for a moment. Seeing that it was Shi Mengwan's number, she picked it up. Qingsang, are you in the hospital? Yes. Su Qingsang came back to her senses. Hearing Shi Mengwan's familiar voice, her eyes finally focused. What's wrong? I'm at the door of your office. I didn't see you. Where are you? The moment Su Qingsang looked up, she saw Shi Mengwan at the other end of the corridor. Chapter 404. She was out of breath. She unbuttoned 2 buttons and patted Su Qingsang on the shoulder. You're not a good friend. What's wrong? Su Qingsang blinked. She hadn't come back to her senses yet. You really don't treat me as a friend. Shi Mengwan punched her. We're so familiar with each other. You didn't even tell me that Andy had a car accident? Su Qingsang was stunned for a moment and suddenly reacted. Sorry, I was too busy before. I didn't notice. If I hadn't come to see you on a whim today, would you still have planned to hide it from me? Shi Mengwan heard that Su Qingsang was going on an exchange program for half a month. She should be back by then, but she didn't answer her call in the morning. She happened to be nearby in the afternoon, so she came over. She didn't expect to hear from someone in Su Qingsang's department that she might have gone to see her mother. She asked and found out that Xiang Kaiping had a car accident. Let's go. Since we're here, I'll go see Auntie. Let's go. Xiang Kaiping might have woken up at this time. She couldn't sleep well after her lumbar spine was injured. But she couldn't take too many painkillers. So she always slept and woke up. You really don't treat me as a friend. Shi Mengwan followed behind Su Qingsang with a bit of anger on her face. In the past, Su Qingsang would have comforted her and told her that she didn't do it on purpose. But she wasn't in the mood today. Her mind was a little confused. She took Shi Mengwan to Xiang Caiping's ward. She looked at Xiang Kaiping with a rather complicated expression. She had already woken up and was quite surprised to see Shi Mengwan. Xiang Kaiping and Xiao Ning didn't notice her expression. Xiang Kaiping was busy chatting with Shi Mengwan. Su Qingsang looked at Xiang Kaiping and thought, does she know that I'm not her daughter? No, she definitely doesn't know. She was still wearing the jade pendant that Xiang Kaiping gave her. The jade was warm and had become as hot as her body temperature. She thought of how Xiang Kaiping had a conflict with Su Peijian for her. She even slapped Su Peijian for her. She remembered the sweater that Xiang Kaiping had knitted for her. She had seen it on the first day she came home. It was placed on the sofa in the living room. At that time, Xiang Kaiping must have been waiting for her to come back and let her wear it. He just didn't expect that when he came back, she was already in the hospital. All the signs showed that Xiang Kaiping really thought that she was her daughter. But why wasn't she? The blood type couldn't be fake, so who was she? Qingsang? Xiang Caiping's voice brought her back to reality. The smile on her face was a little stiff. Mom. This time the word mother was a little stiffer than usual, but no one could tell. Why are you daydreaming? Mengwan is talking to you. Qingsang, what's wrong? Shi Mengwan looked at Su Qingsang, seemingly confused by her absent-mindedness. Nothing, I just remembered that I have an operation in the afternoon. I'm asking you. Fortunately, Shi Mengwan wasn't angry. Andy, how long are you going to stay here? How long will it take to recover? Did the doctor say anything? Stay in the hospital for at least a month. Let's see how he recovers in a month. You don't have to stay in the hospital. You can just come to the hospital for rehabilitation. So long? Shi Mengwan's eyes widened. Doesn't that mean I'll be in the hospital during the new year? That can't be helped. It's a little serious. Who would want to spend the new year in the hospital if they could? Auntie, I'll come and keep you company then. No need. Xiang Kaiping hurriedly stopped her. It's not auspicious to come to the hospital during the new year. It's the same to come after the new year. I'm fine. Auntie, you don't have to be so polite with me. Qingsang's mother is my mother. Don't worry. I'll definitely come and keep you company. Xiang Kaiping was very embarrassed. However, she didn't continue being polite. With Shi Mengwan around, Xiang Kaiping waved Su Qingsang to hurry to work. Su Qingsang looked at Xiang Kaiping with a complicated expression. Finally, she nodded, said goodbye to Shi Mengwan and left. Su Qingsang really didn't lie. There were 2 minor operations in the afternoon, and they wouldn't take long. They weren't difficult operations. She could still concentrate when she was working, but after she stopped what she was doing, she couldn't stop thinking about her relationship with Xiang Kaiping. She thought for a long time but couldn't think of a reason. In the end, she went to the hematology department to do another blood type test. Dr. Su, why did you do a blood test? Didn't you do it during the physical examination? Facing the hematology colleague's question, Su Qingsang smiled and didn't rush to answer. For her, this question was really difficult to answer. Nothing, I just want to check. The colleague didn't ask any more questions. After helping Su Qingsang with the examination, he gave her the results. It didn't take long to check her blood type, and the results would be known in a few minutes. The blood type was clearly written on it. Her blood type was AB. As soon as Hu Jinyao entered the hospital today, he sensitively noticed that Su Qingsang's mood wasn't quite right. Although she was joking with Xiang Kaiping and making her happy, he could see that Su Qingsang's smile didn't end there. What happened? Hu Jinyao thought of the news he had received. Su Qinghui also sent Su Peijian to the United States. Li Qianxue was furious, and in the end she went on a trip in a rage. Coincidentally, Su Yusin was also on vacation and she took her son with her, so she wasn't in Lin City these days. In other words, it couldn't be the Su family who provoked Su Qingsang, but that might not be the case. Could it be something related to work? Hu Jinyao wasn't in a hurry to ask. He believed that Su Qingsang would tell him when they got home. Now they were all staying at home at night. This was strongly requested by Xiang Kaiping. He said that they had to work during the day, and it would be bad if they didn't rest well at night. Xiaoning stayed in the hospital to take care of Xiang Kaiping. She was used to being a nurse. He had taken care of many people who were more difficult to serve than Xiang Kaiping, so there was nothing to worry about. As expected, Hu Jinyao's intuition was extremely accurate. Su Qingsang fell silent as soon as she got into the car. She didn't say a word and kept her eyes on the road in front of her. Under the illumination of the street lights, she looked a little lost, a little conflicted, and a little down that he couldn't see clearly. Wife? Are you okay? I'm fine. What could have happened to me? She had just suddenly discovered something. Hu Jinyao frowned slightly. He didn't like Su Qingsang's tone. However, he didn't ask any more questions. Instead, he sped up a little. The car stopped in front of Su Qingsang's apartment. Su Qingsang got out of the car almost as soon as it stopped. Hu Jinyao looked at her back and quickly got out of the car. Wife, are you okay? I said I'm fine. Don't worry about me now. Chapter 405. The question of whose daughter she was had haunted her for years. Later, when Xiang Kaiping appeared, she thought that this problem was gone. But he didn't expect this problem to come again. Who was she? Whose child is it? Whose daughter? Honey? Hu Jinyao took her hand and she instinctively wanted to break free. When she realized that she couldn't break free, she was a little annoyed. Let me go. Something was wrong. Something was really wrong. Honey. Hu Jinyao didn't let go of her. Instead, he pulled her into his arms and asked, What's wrong with you? Let go of me, I can't think with you like this. Then don't think. Hu Jinyao hugged her tightly. Don't think. Look at me. Look into my eyes. Hu Jinyao stared at her. What happened? Tell me. Su Qingsang looked at his handsome face. His deep-set features and eyes that were as bright as the stars were staring straight at her. Her lips moved, but in the end she couldn't say a word. Her eyes were a little red and her face was a little pale. Seeing this, Hu Jinyao wrapped his arms around her waist and said, Let's go. If there's anything we can talk about it when we get home. Su Qingsang didn't object. She followed Hu Jinyao upstairs. She entered the house, turned on the lights, closed the door and sat down on the sofa. He casually picked up a pillow beside him and hugged it in his arms. Hu Jinyao glanced at her, went to the kitchen, poured her a glass of warm water and put it in her hand. Drink some water. The warm water flowed down his throat, dispersing some of the coldness from outside. Hu Jinyao turned on the air conditioner. As the temperature rose, Su Qingsang slowly calmed down. She put the cup aside and hugged the pillow in her arms tightly. I'm sorry, Hu Jinyao. I shouldn't have done that. There was something wrong with her attitude just now. Hu Jinyao didn't speak. He just reached out and held her hand. Don't worry about that for now. Tell me what's wrong with you? What happened? This was the second time he had seen Su Qingsang like that, aside from the pregnant woman who jumped off the building. No, Su Qingsang felt even more depressed than last time. Su Qingsang pursed her lips into a straight line and stared at Hu Jinyao. Hu Jinyao also stared at her. She didn't speak and neither did he. Silence. Su Qingsang lowered her head as if she was thinking. Hu Jinyao looked at her and patiently waited for her to speak. The temperature of the air conditioner was a little high. Su Qingsang felt a little hot. She took off her coat but didn't let go of the pillow in her arms. She tilted her head and looked at an unknown point. Would Jinyao have Meng Meng? Meng. Mendelian inheritance. Su Qingsang's expression was calm as she finished the sentence word by word. Su Meng Su Su, Meng Su Meng Meng. In layman's terms, it also includes blood type matching. For example, the combination of different blood types will produce a child with different blood types. Meng. Meng. Su He Meng Ti, it is Xiang. He did not know much about medicine. What's wrong with Mendelian inheritance? Did it have anything to do with her low mood today? According to the laws of Mendelian inheritance, people with type O blood, no matter which blood type they mate with, will not be able to have a child with type AB blood. So, Hua Jinyao couldn't figure it out. Su Qingsang finally retracted her gaze and looked at his face. My mother is type O. Do you know what my blood type is? What? Hua Jinyao guessed what Su Qingsang was going to say. I am type AB, Su Qingsang said calmly. Do you understand? I am type AB. Hua Jinyao thought about it carefully. After thinking about Su Qingsang's words, he looked at her with uncertainty and said, maybe your father is type AB? Hua Jinyao, you didn't hear me clearly. No matter which blood type O was combined with, they would not be able to produce a child with type AB blood. Type O is a recessive hereditary blood type. Even if Su Qingsang is type O and AB, they can only give birth to type A or B. Meeting Hua Jinyao's gaze, Su Qingsang didn't mind clarifying. In other words, even if my father is type AB, if I'm the child of my father and my mother, my blood type is either A or B. But I can't be type AB. Hua Jinyao understood. He looked at Su Qingsang with a complicated expression. You mean, I'm not Xiang Caiping's daughter? Su Qingsang said calmly. My mom couldn't give birth to me. Hua Jinyao looked at her in silence. Su Qingsang didn't say anything. She didn't tell Xiang Caiping about it. Xiang Caiping hadn't recovered yet, so she couldn't tell her. She didn't want to upset her. Moreover, Xiang Caiping really treated her as her daughter. If she knew that she wasn't her daughter, she wouldn't be able to bear it. She didn't dare to think about it. More than 2 months were enough for her to develop a relationship with Xiang Caiping. She didn't want Xiang Caiping to be sad. But if she didn't tell Xiang Caiping, who else could she tell? If she wasn't Xiang Caiping's daughter, then whose daughter was she? Could she be Su Qinghui's daughter too? If I'm not Xiang Caiping's daughter, then who am I? Whose daughter am I? Who was she? Was she Su Qinghui's daughter? If not, why did she grow up in the Su family? If so, who was her biological mother? Did Su Qinghui have a relationship with other women? Gave birth to her? So he brought her back to the Su family to raise her? Was that so? She remembered that Su Qinghui had never liked her. Was it because Su Qinghui knew? Did he know that she wasn't Xiang Caiping's daughter? Hua Jinyao didn't say anything. The clues that he felt were wrong piled up and finally connected. He had always thought it was strange. Why was Su Qinghui so cold to her child if he couldn't forget Xiang Caiping? Even if it was to protect Su Qingsang from being bullied by Li Qianxue and her son, it was too unreasonable. What's more, Su Qinghui could be cold to Su Qingsang in front of the Su family and treat her better in private. But Su Qinghui didn't treat Su Qingsang well even in private. Now he found the reason. Hearing Su Qingsang's words, Hua Jinyao thought of another possibility. I think it's really possible. You're really not Su Qinghui's daughter. If I'm not his daughter, then why did he raise me in the Su family? It didn't make sense at all. Didn't I say it last time? He might have done it to anger Li Qianxue. Chapter 406. After all, Xiang Caiping had given birth to a child and it was a girl. If she wasn't Xiang Caiping's daughter, then what about the child? Hua Jinyao raised his eyebrows and thought of a possibility. Do you think the child is gone? How could it be? Su Qingsang's eyes widened. She couldn't accept the result. I'm just guessing. According to my investigation and what your mother said, she seemed to have a difficult birth. It took her a long time to give birth to the child. You're also a doctor. Is it possible that the child died when it was born? Your father didn't want your mother to feel bad, so he hid it. Then why did he take me back to the Su family? Isn't it better if the child is gone? I told you it might be to anger Li Qianxue. The child of the woman he loved died, but Li Qianxue's child was still fine. With Su Qinghui's personality at that time, it was very likely that he would take a child back to anger Li Qianxue. It's possible. Su Qingsang also admitted that it seemed like something Su Qinghui would do. She finally regained some spirit on her face. So, I might be an orphan? Well? Hua Jinyao didn't know how to answer. Maybe you should ask your father. Su Qinghui's blood type will know. The Su family has his medical report. It was in Su Qinghui's study. But I don't think I'm his child. So many years of cold treatment, so many years of neglect. At this time, Su Qingsang suddenly seemed to have an explanation. If she wasn't Su Qinghui and Xiang Caiping's daughter, but just the child from outside, it would all make sense. Neither of them thought that Li Qianxue was the one who had a difficult birth. After giving birth, she fainted and slept for a day and a night before waking up. Especially Su Qingsang, she would never think that someone as powerful as Li Qianxue would be deceived like this. Su Qingsang was actually still very curious about her own life. Who were her biological parents? Why did they abandon her? Did Su Qinghui just randomly pick up a child, or did he prepare it in advance? She would have to meet Su Qinghui in person to give her an explanation. Su Qingsang suddenly took out her phone and dialed Su Qinghui's number. But before she could make the call, she hung up again. She lowered her head and looked at the phone in her hand, looking a little dispirited. Even if she called, even if she asked, so what? Would Su Qinghui tell her the truth? Would he tell her about his past? Most importantly, if she really asked and Su Qinghui told her, what about Xiang Caiping? What would happen to Xiang Caiping? Hua Jinyao looked at Su Qingsang, who was exuding an extremely depressed aura. He didn't like seeing Su Qingsang like this. He got up, walked to Su Qingsang and sat down next to her. He reached out and pulled her into his arms. Su Qingsang closed her eyes and leaned her face on his shoulder. Hua Jinyao. I can't ask. Hua Jinyao tightened his grip on her. Ask whatever you want. If we can't find anything, we can investigate it ourselves. After all, with Su Qinghui's identity, it's still possible to find out where he brought the child home. However, it was a little difficult. After all, more than 20 years had passed. It would take more than a little time to find Su Qingsang's biological parents. I can't ask. Su Qingsang shook her head. She had slowly calmed down. At least not now. Hua Jinyao was a smart person. He almost figured it out immediately. Are you worried about your mother? After calling her that for so long, he had gotten used to it. Su Qingsang nodded. My mother came here so happily. She brought money and a guilty heart. She wanted to recognize her daughter as her own. She was so good to me. If Xiang Caiping knew that she wasn't her daughter, if she knew that her daughter might be gone, what would Xiang Caiping do? Not to mention that she had just been in a car accident and hadn't fully recovered. Then don't ask. Hua Jinyao turned her shoulder and looked into her eyes. Since you don't know who your biological parents are, it's good to continue like this. Su Qingsang looked at him. Her heart trembled at his unconditional support. Hua Jinyao, don't you think I'm too useless? How could that be? You see, I used to think that I was an illegitimate daughter, but now I'm an orphan who doesn't even know who my parents are. More importantly, I don't even have the ability to find an answer for myself. Wife. Hua Jinyao lifted her body easily and held her in his arms. Don't think like that. No matter whose daughter you are, who your parents are you. Orphan or illegitimate daughter. It's all because of you. You don't need to belittle yourself. I'm not belittling myself. I just feel useless. Then if you say that, am I even more useless? I can't help you find your biological parents. Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang glanced at him and suddenly smiled. You're really good at comforting people. If that was considered comforting. I'm just telling the truth. It's not comforting. As Hua Jinyao spoke, he leaned over and kissed her cheek. This is comforting. Su Qingsang blushed a little. She blinked at Hua Jinyao. Can I scold you? Ha! You're still in the mood to think about that at a time like this? She was no longer sad. Wife, that's where you're wrong. Hua Jinyao pressed his forehead against hers and lowered his voice. There was a hint of playfulness in it. It's at times like this that we need to do something like this. It can relieve our worries. Nonsense. Su Qingsang couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. But in the next second, she leaned over and gently kissed his lips. Hua Jinyao. She put her arms around his neck and said softly, let me forget those unhappy things. Yes, madam. Hua Jinyao gently lifted her body so that she was straddling him, and tightened his arms around her waist. It was an extremely crazy night and she was exhausted to the extreme. Su Qingsang slept soundly all night and didn't have a single dream. When she woke up in the morning, her cheeks were red. After a night's sleep, she had adjusted her mood. Since she couldn't tell Xiang Caiping now, she would pretend that she didn't know about it for the time being. As for the future, she would find an opportunity to ask Su Qinghui. It was his business whether he told her or not, but she couldn't continue living like this. Chapter 407. Nice. Isn't it nice? Su Qingsang looked at the sweater she was wearing. I think it's nice too. A hand-knitted sweater like this was definitely not comparable to a machine-made sweater. It was especially warm on her, and Su Qingsang didn't regret her decision. Mom will be very happy. Hu Jingyao was very happy that she had thought it through. Not to mention that blood was a big deal, Hu Jingyao felt that sometimes it wasn't as important as seeing one another. Even though Xiang Kaiping and Su Qingsang weren't mother and daughter, her motherly love for Su Qingsang came from the bottom of her heart. When Su Qingsang entered the hospital ward again, Xiang Kaiping found that she was in a good mood. She took a closer look and saw that Su Qingsang was wearing the sweater she had knitted for her. Xiang Kaiping immediately smiled and attributed her daughter's good mood to the sweater. If you like it, I'll knit it for you again after I get out of the hospital. Mom, don't knit anymore. Su Qingsang hurriedly said, if you didn't want to go out to buy wool, this wouldn't have happened. How can that be the same? I'm fine now. Don't worry. I can still do it. I won't only knit for you, but also for my grandson in the future. Looking at Xiang Caiping's smiling face, Su Qingsang once again didn't regret her choice. What did it matter whether she was Xiang Caiping's daughter or not? At least for now, she could always be Xiang Caiping's daughter. Time went by 1 week. The countdown to the Lunar New Year had entered the stage. The streets and roads began to become lively. There were more people buying things for the new year, and more people shopping on the streets. The atmosphere of the new year was very strong, but the number of patients in the hospital didn't decrease much. Su Qingsang was still busy every day running between the department and the ward. The doctors who came for the exchange had all returned. Zhuo Hongchen also came to see Xiang Kaiping. Not only Zhuo Hongchen, but almost all the colleagues in the obstetrics and gynecology department came to see Xiang Kaiping. This also made Xiang Kaiping feel relieved, feeling that her daughter was very popular in the workplace. She especially liked Zhuo Hongchen and thought that he was a good young man. Once when Shi Mingwan came, he said that he would introduce her to Shi Mingwan, but Shi Mingwan was scared away. Su Qingsang specially told Xiang Kaiping that she could talk to Shi Mingwan about anything. It didn't matter what anyone said. There was only one thing, and that was to never talk to her about a boyfriend. She didn't elaborate on what it was, but Xiang Kaiping wouldn't ask again next time. In short, everything was going in a good direction. The cured meat and sausages that Xiang Kaiping had made for Su Qingsang were ready to eat. Unfortunately, Xiang Kaiping couldn't eat it now. However, she didn't mind at all. She repeatedly told Su Qingsang to ask Sister Lu to cook for the couple. After nearly half a month of recovery, Xiang Kaiping could already eat some light staple foods. Of course, it was still inconvenient for her to move around. When she went to the toilet, she had to rely on the nurse for daily life. However, she had Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao to take care of her, and Shi Mingwan came to accompany her from time to time. Xiang Kaiping felt refreshed. At the same time, Su Qinghui, who had sent Su Peijian to the United States, returned. The first thing Su Qinghui did when he came back was to visit Kaiping. Unfortunately, Su Qingsang was at work that day and was not in the ward. Xiaoning went to fetch some water and walked away for a while. There was no one else in the ward. Su Qinghui entered the ward just like that. Xiang Kaiping had already woken up. She was used to taking afternoon naps after eating, but she never slept long. Her waist was injured and she couldn't move around freely. She had to wait for about 10 more days for her rehabilitation. It had been a bit hard for her these days, but she didn't mention it to her daughter and son-in-law. Xiaoning, please get me a glass of water. She only heard someone enter the ward, but she didn't look to see who it was. At this time, Su Qingsang was at work and Shi Mingwan wasn't free either. Only Xiaoning was there. There was a glass in front of her, filled with water. Xiang Kaiping, who was half-sitting, was about to reach out to take it. However, she clearly saw that the hand was not Xiaoning's with some meat. The moment she looked up and saw Su Qinghui, Xiang Caiping's expression changed. What are you doing here? I'm here to see you. Su Qinghui felt very guilty towards Xiang Kaiping. He held the glass of water, and the expression on his face was a little restrained. Thank you. I don't need you to see me. Xiang Kaiping was angry when she saw him. Naturally, she didn't have a good expression on her face. I'll recover faster if you don't come to see me. If you come to see me, I'm afraid my life will be shortened. Her words were really rude. Su Qinghui looked a little angry. Kaiping, why do you have to be like this? You and I are two different people, not us. Xiang Kaiping made a clear distinction. Also, you are not welcome here. Please leave. Su Qinghui handed the glass a little closer, but found that Xiang Kaiping didn't take it at all. He put the glass aside helplessly. Kaiping, I've sent Peijin to the United States. That's your business. You don't have to tell me. I told her that she can't come back this new year. She has to stay there alone until the new year. Do you think this is a punishment? Xiang Kaiping looked at Su Qinghui, even though she knew that Su Qinghui would send Peijin away. She was also the one who said not to hold Peijin responsible. However, when she heard him say that, she was still disgusted. Peijin has never spent the new year alone. Su Qinghui looked at Xiang Kaiping. He had an inexplicable urge to let Xiang Kaiping know more. Ha! Xiang Kaiping sneered. She felt a throbbing pain in her heart. Su Qinghui, Peijin has never spent the new year alone. Do you know your daughter, Su Qingsang? Qingsang was even on duty in the hospital during the new year. Do you still feel that Peijin has been wronged? That's not what I meant. Su Qinghui looked a little embarrassed. He really didn't care where Su Qingsang spent the new year. He vaguely remembered that she was not with the Su family for 2 years. Even if Qingsang was with the Su family, do you really think of her as your daughter? Have you ever felt any warmth for her during the new year? Have you? Kaiping, calm down. I am calm. Xiang Kaiping was really calm. If I'm not calm, what I'm going to do now is to kill you and die with you. Xiang Kaiping was a little upset. She patted her chest and said, you should go. I don't want to see you. Kaiping, listen to me. Listen to me, I haven't finished what I told you the last time. Kaiping, Qingsang really isn't. Really not your daughter. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.